next? All right, please stand for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Hey, Del, can you hand me that list, please?
Yes, sir.
All right, so we'll start with the public section. Is it Lee Tiedemann? Hi. You want to speak to us?
Yeah, to the
If
podium,
you come to the
please.
podium, that would be great.
Are you all familiar with the case, or is this the first time that you've heard about it?
So the Ponds Committee is familiar, but if you could just give everyone a brief background, that would be appreciated.
Okay, so so basically myself and my three brothers own this.
Tell us who you are first.
Oh, sorry,
That's
Lee,
okay.
Lee Tiedemann. And my father had a house on Georgia Pond. He passed away a couple of years ago. And so now it's sort of in our name. It's been on the market, hasn't sold yet. And then last summer, we've been renting to different tenants. Last summer, we had a tenant in the month of August who we actually know. And he said, oh, you should cut down, the Phragmites. And we said, no, you can't. We're trying to sell this place. We won't be able to get a C of O. And anyway, he went ahead and he did it. And then he had a big party. He did it for his party. Long story short, we got a violation. And so I went in right after we got the violation and sort of said, how can we rectify this? And it really was done without, our knowledge, and we actually told him not to do it. And so I'm just going through the process now. I guess so that's basically it. We've sort of applied to the village for sort of a retroactive permit. I first felt like we did that, and now I'm here for the trustees, and we had InterScience come out and look at the property, and met with Jim and saw that when they had cut the Phragmites, it was just done with machete, but they left the stuff there on top, and so we're gonna, once we get clearance from you guys, go ahead and clean that up so that it doesn't, hang out in the pond and everything else. And
So you're planning to apply for a trustee permit to cut Phragmites, and upon getting that permit, you're going to clean up what's already been cut illegally. What's already been cut. So you're going to get the permit in place and then clean it up.
We can do it that way, or we can say we're not getting a permit and we're just paying you guys so that we can clean it up, and then whoever buys the house can cut it and sort of it's on them.
I think we want everyone to do it the same way if we could, and I think the permit is the way to standardize every property, so everyone's treated evenly and fairly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But so moving forward, I guess the thing is...
A new homeowner would have to apply for their own permit.
Right.
It's not an expensive permit, but I think it's appropriate that
we get the
you
permit
get the permit.
for them, so they can do it.
For you.
For you.
So we
Even
can
if it's
do
for a
it.
month, even if it's for 60 days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think you should have a permit, and that sets the standard for the new homeowner and you can help educate them that this is a pond-wide initiative, everything's being done in a certain standard, and it really helps to, make sure everyone is aware of the importance of these projects that are going on.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, that's...
Jim, is that fair?
Jim, you went and looked at it?
we can basically clean it up. We have a landscaper to go
10
and
colored glossies.
rake it up.
Egregious act.
This, what? What'd you say?
I'm breaking your
He's
chuck.
making a joke, making it. I'm sure it was a beautiful party.
Oh, I was...
So is the property close to being sold? Is that?
It's actually, right now, we're in contract.
Okay.
And we have to get all of this stuff.
So
It will set a precedent.
Get the permit.
Yeah,
For the
so
new
whatever, I mean, as
homeowner.
long as, so that's
Want to have their
great,
sign
yeah.
supply, or you want to apply?
Now,
How long will the permit
Oh, we have the
take to
application.
get?
It's right
We
here.
have an application. We have an application.
Yes.
Great.
It's good because it sets a precedent for the next.
Right,
year.
and they probably will be happy. Yeah, I guess, well, it doesn't really matter. They'll probably apply for their own permit, but if we
Yes.
have one, can they take, like,
my understanding,
Yeah, they get a new one,
did you fill out an application?
Yeah, it's right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we
So
can
we
vote
have
on it
some-
right now.
We have something that we can vote on.
Yep.
I would like to make a motion that we vote to approve this, okay? But I don't want this to be become a precedent for standard operating procedures here. I mean, what did go on here, the work was done illegally. The work was done within the town, within the scenic easement was done illegally. And we don't want to see this in the future, but at the same time, we've got somebody that's come to us, made us aware of this activity. They didn't do the work. At this point, I think the best thing for the pond, the best thing for everybody is to see the debris cleaned up. We're going to be letting the pond very shortly, so it'll be a good time. But Lee,
Do you know who's going to clean it up?
I hate to throw a wet blanket on this, but do you have DEC permit?
we are applying for one. That's
Okay.
what Rich Warren's doing for us.
Okay, do you have any sense of the timing on that?
I don't, he
Okay.
is in the process and has. but-
Okay, what we can do is,
I'm sorry?
if we approve this tonight, it's going to be contingent
Okay.
on a DEC permit,
Mm-hmm.
okay? No activity in this area can occur without the other permits in place.
So no cleanup should happen.
Any activity in this wetland is regulated.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't, we can't unilaterally give you permission to violate the DEC's regulations either.
Right.
So, I think the only way we can do this is we can have a vote. The permission would be contingent on the procurement of the other.
That's a standard,
permits.
that's a standard part of the permit, yeah.
All right.
Is there going to be any additional cutting?
Well,
I mean,
Well,
stubble
no,
and stuff
from my,
like that?
from my perspective, no, which is why, I mean, I'll get the permit going forward, but we have no interest in cutting. You know, it's like an expense that no one in our family really wants to deal with, and we would rather have, whoever buys the place, take that on, and it is an issue, Phragmites in the pond, as you all know, but I'm more than happy to do it, but it's not what I'm here tonight. I mean, tonight was really just to clean up what has been done, and,
Do you have, as a requirement on the application, it asks for the construction company that's going to do that work? Do you know who that is going to be?
I don't know yet. I mean, I'd like to have Nestor do it, who's, I think he's in Colombia right now.
Okay.
But I put in a
does
call.
Nestor have insurance? Does Nestor
Probably.
have a contractor's license? Does Nestor have anything? I mean, it probably would be better to have somebody,
He probably does, because he has like a pretty big, I mean, his
all right,
company,
all
so.
right. No, that's fine.
But I can get that
That's fine. We're gonna
information
need-
for you guys.
We're
if that's what
certainly
you
going to
need.
need to have that.
Can we get that within the next 2 weeks or 10
Yeah.
business days?
Because there's going to be a volume of material here.
Right.
I think the estimation of 1 day is maybe a little,
Optimistic?
Of one what?
of 1 day, maybe optimistic. There's probably, I don't know, how many foot of shoreline do you have there? It's probably 300, 400 foot of shoreline you have over there.
Not really, but anyway, I was down
Anyway,
there.
it's going to take, we want it cleaned
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
okay?
of course.
That's all.
So a condition of this vote would be that the contractor information would be provided within
Yes.
10 business days?
Yeah.
And so basically you need a contractor with insurance. That's what
Yes.
you.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
And
You may-
within 10 business days, and, yeah, I'll get
All
that
right.
to you. Who
Can
do I just,
Give it to Lori at the office, please.
I don't know, we got a motion on the floor. Does anybody want to second it?
All in
Okay.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. we're good.
Well, let's just make sure we're clear that that's contingent upon receipt of the DEC. We have no idea how far along they are with the DEC permit as well, so
That's the other
want to make sure that was clear as a contingency.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Okay, thank you
Thanks
very
for
much.
coming.
Thank you.
Tell the new owners.
Mark Mendelman.
They'll have to get a permit too. Tell the new owners they'll have to get a permit too if they want to cut.
Well, hopefully, right?
Okay, good luck.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Mark Mendelman with Seacoast Enterprises Associates. Thanks for seeing us tonight. Try not to, I know you have a full agenda. We'll try not to take too much of your time. I want to start out, I've got a bunch of updates across 3 marinas. First is going to be Harbor Marina. I have some information to pass out. Copies. Basically, this is an update on the Sedge Island and bulkhead replacement and maintenance dredging that we did there. We replaced 125 feet of the old creosote bulkhead on the south side of Sedge Island. We dredged approximately 500 cubic yards, and we replaced 6 old creosote pilings on the B dock at Harbor Marina. We still have to do repair of 96 feet of wood bulkhead on the east side of Sedge Island, and that's going to be done by capping that wood with quarter-inch plastic sheathing, which we've done in the past, and that's going to be 2 feet above and below the lower whaler. In the handout that I passed around are some pictures of the Sedge Island, the new bulkhead with the dredged material on top, and some pictures of the B-dock pilings that were replaced with new Greenheart pilings, circled in red. The next page, the third page of pictures, is the section of bulkhead on Sedge Island, which we will be sheathing with this plastic above and below the whaler. This is the existing CCA bulkhead, which is in decent shape. Okay, so that's the status on Harbor Marina. Move quickly on to Halsey's Marina. Unless there are any questions on Harbor Marina?
Other than I had met with your brother, and it came out just like he said it would. So it really came out nice, and,
Thank you.
Kudos to you guys. It looks great.
He's on his way up to Albany for the Empire State Marine Trades Association.
Okay.
Probably going to be up there for a couple days if the snow's.
No, it came out really good, Mark.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Frank. The next is an application at Halsey's Marina. And 4 copies of information that can be passed around.
This is the dredging,
This is for maintenance dredging,
maintenance
yes.
dredging. Yeah.
So, if I could walk through the package with you. We have an East Hampton Town building permit, we have natural resources permit, we have the DEC permit. The trustee permit expired February 24th of 2017. That was for up to 300 cubic yards. The building permit is set to renew. We'd like to renew the permit for the trustee permit for the maintenance dredging. Page through the application, there's a picture.
Mark, is this a renewal or a new application?
It's a renewal, hopefully, will be a renewal.
Okay.
And I don't have a picture in my package. I'm sorry. To steal one of these packages back to have a picture. Thank you. So there's a picture that looks like this
Yep.
in that package. And what that shows is this was in the original permit application. 3 basic phases of maintenance dredging. Area 1, which is out to the west, was done in 2015, 2016. We'd like to do Phase 2 and Phase 3 of the dredging with this renewed permit. Same dewatering location for those materials. I'll give this back.
I just have a question for the board more than anything. I see the permit application with a $100 fee. Would that be applied for a renewal as well as a new application?
Yes.
Yeah, anytime there's an application submitted, typically there is a permit fee associated with it.
So what's the difference between a new application and a renewal, other than you don't have to do as much work for the renewal because you already know a lot about it? I mean, is it essentially the same thing?
I don't know if we have a specific criteria of what triggers a renewal versus a new application. That's something we could talk about going forward, but there was a permit in place at some point, Mark, and that expired.
February
February
2017.
24th.
Of 17, yes.
Yeah.
A little over a year ago.
Yeah,
Right. So a new permit fee would be applicable.
certainly.
Well, they paid it.
I mean, usually, even with Phragmites, we do them every year.
Right.
So usually our permits are pretty short-term, and a permit fee is usually, I believe, part of the package.
Sorry, this is not a renewal request. This is a new permit.
Yeah.
application.
Oh, okay.
Therefore, I'd like to request a 2-year trustee permit to allow us to maintenance dredge up to 300 cubic yards in 2 seasons.
Okay.
So there's that.
And where are you with the town with their building permit?
Building permit is in place, and it will get renewed. That's on the first page of the letter.
Right.
The building permit expires March 31st of this year.
So that's going to renew before the anniversary?
It'll renew before the anniversary.
Thank you, Mark.
Do they need our permit?
They do, and that's why it's so important for us to get the permit from you. If you could act on it within the next, before the 31st of March, obviously, that would be wonderful.
So where is mean low water going to be once the dredging is complete for these areas? Is
The
that-
dredging is complete.
Okay.
The dredging is complete. What we're talking about doing, oh, I'm sorry, I was in Harbor Marina. Get confused. Halsey's Marina, the mean low water depth is in here. Up to 7 feet below mean low water,
All right.
Great.
with a 3-to-1 slope at the bulkhead.
Thank you.
When do you plan to start this?
In the next window, which is, I believe it starts in October,
Oh, okay.
the dredging
Okay.
opens.
So you wouldn't have a problem if somebody from the committee took a walk right down there
Not
and
at
took a
all.
quick look? Okay.
Not at all.
So why don't we just turn this over to committee at this point, and then,
And then vote on it at
Yeah,
the next
yeah.
meeting if possible.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm on the committee, so, we can get together along with anybody else on the committee.
Perfect.
All right, great.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Anybody else have questions on it before he leaves?
What committee is it?
Female hall.
Oh, okay, I'm not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are these for the board to keep, Mark, these copies?
Yes. And I
I
have,
got one.
You in the committee?
No, I'm not, no.
Anyone from 3 Mile need a copy?
I'm just putting this on.
Bill?
I got, yeah.
okay, moving right along. That's Halsey's.
Bill, we can get together?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Next is 3 Mile Harbor Marina. I have some information to pass out there as well.
While you're doing that, I might add that looks like Gardner's Marina's coming along nicely.
Yes,
Yep.
Yes, the re-bulkheading on the
Yeah.
west side.
Excellent.
They're doing a great
Yeah,
job.
yeah.
Okay.
Right, hold on.
4 more copies of information about 3 Mile Harbor Marina.
Okay. Basically, 3 Mile Harbor Marina, first, I want to give you an update on what we have done and what we are going to hope to continue doing. First, there is permit T number 6-16, which was for bulkhead replacement and maintenance dredging. Maintenance dredging is complete. The bulkhead section, and in that packet, there's a drawing that looks like this. The bulkhead section in front of the new clubhouse building and down and around the lift slip has been completed. As well as the maintenance dredging. We've submitted the photos of the completed work. We've paid the dredge material fee. We're awaiting the completion of our site plan improvements, which include, I have to say, the first non-municipal, commercial, innovative alternative nitrogen treatment system, on-site wastewater treatment system. So we're very proud to be the first to be putting in a nitrogen treatment.
Awesome.
Thank you.
When we do that and complete the other site plan improvements, we'll get an as-built survey, we'll submit that as-built survey, close out that permit. The next, and that permit was expired November 24th of 2017, so it's done. Permit number T number 5-16 for dock and piling maintenance. We've replaced every piling in the marina. The docks are substantially replaced except for the main dock sections of floating dock A and B, which still have some useful life remaining. Again, that permit will be closed when we get the as-built survey for the site plan improvements. We do have, and in this picture, it talks about the completed maintenance in the top. Continuing maintenance that we would like to submit an application for. We're not really in a rush, but I figured I'd bring you up to speed on what we want to do for when we submit that application, which will be in the next month or so. In the blue sections of bulkhead, here and here, which are existing CCA wood bulkhead with useful life remaining, we're going to be resheathing those above the whaler. We've already resheathed with your permission below the whaler previous years ago. We'll resheath above the whaler as well with that 1/4-inch plastic, and that should set us up for a good long time. Next, the sections in red out here, there's this little peninsula. It's an old creosote bulkhead, and we would like to replace that as part of this permit application when we submit. I've also included on the second page several photos of that western section of the bulkhead. It's in a bad state of disrepair. It has been capped with plastic, but the pilings are just rotted out, so it's all buckling and it's in bad shape. Interestingly enough, there's a picture here from this, this last nor'easter where the water was right up over the bulkhead. That bulkhead is considerably lower than the CCA portions and the new portion that we put in, which is actually a foot higher than the older. So when we go to build this, we're going to ask for permission to go higher on that bulkhead as well. Okay, we'd also like to construct and install some finger piers inside the basin of the marina. 3 of those finger piers are shown in black, 1, 2, 3, that don't exist now, but we'll be applying. We have received your permission in the past to install those, but we have not gotten to the work yet, so we'll include that. And then continuing maintenance on A and B dock main sections, redecking, et cetera.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
You're asking to, you're going to ask to put these 3 finger piers in. Why there? I'm just curious. I mean, are there particular boats there that need to be accessed by a
Well-
finger pier? If the other slips aren't, or?
It's not necessarily that that's where we want to put them. We figured, based on slip sizes, that that's where they would want to be. We kind of like the flexibility to be able to put them anywhere inside the basin where we're not going outside, and basically meet market demand. If a boat comes in that doesn't have any access from the stern or the bow, and they say, we'd really like to have a finger pier, we'd like the flexibility to put one in.
So your application will basically have them movable? You'll ask for them to be movable?
That would be great, yeah. We could put in a note to say typical locations or something like that. Okay. Is there any other questions on?
No. Bill and I will, I'll give you a call tomorrow, and we'll set something up, maybe towards the end of the week, Bill?
Yeah.
One day, and we'll go through them with you.
Okay.
All right?
Next and almost last,
I thought you were done, I'm sorry.
in this letter, the third paragraph is about the floating upwelling shellfish that should be in your packet as well. There's a picture that looks like this. Basically, Cornell Cooperative, who we've worked with to give them our empty storage barrels, and they do all kinds of good things. They've come here and they've talked to you about these flupsy oyster grow-out rafts. They're 12 by 13. They've approached us and said, could we put one in the two in the Marina Basin, sorry. We said, great, we'd love to have oysters growing, filtering the water. We obviously have to get permits to do that, and there's several options. These things need 120 volts of power, and they need 3-foot minimum water at low tide. So I've got 3 options shown on this diagram. The first is on the westernmost part of the basin, where we have to go out 25 feet from the corner of the bulkhead in order to get to 3 feet. We'd have to put some sort of a floating walkway to get to them and anchor them somehow out there. Option 2 is out here on the east side of our sea dock, and I've put in an overhead view as well in the second page, so you can kind of get an idea of where these would be. Option 2 is a decent location in that it's got deep water and the power is right there, easy access. It does encroach a bit into the channel for the people launching the boats. Option 3 is tucked in close to the bulkhead, off of the sea dock, again, the east side of the sea dock. I'm a little bit worried about depth in there as to whether or not we'll have it, especially if they're laid out like that. I don't expect any discussion tonight or anything. This is purely to go to the committee. Brian, you can come down, we can talk about this. That's what I want, is to figure out what the best option I should apply for. Okay? And lastly, transient moorings. We're going to be doing 5 transient moorings again this year. We'd like to see, we'd like to note that those are available to book online now, which is really great. One last thing on the flupsies. The thought was, that these could be used by transient boaters to tie up a dinghy to, and it's an opportunity to put signage as well that says, use the pump out, here's the options for pumping out, here's how you get it, here's what these floats do and why it's so important, and don't dump your sewage into the water. These oysters are cleaning up the water, and try to keep it clean. So that's my update.
Okay, good.
Okay?
At our last meeting, there was a discussion about these barrels, and everybody wanted to know what's in them before they're used.
It's non-toxic antifreeze.
Right,
For
green.
winterizing the boat.
Remember the color green?
Yeah.
No, it's not green, it's pink. Green would be toxic antifreeze.
Oh, okay.
And you can't spill
It's the
that.
stuff they put in your water systems, your potable water systems. to keep it from being-
RVs, right. It's red, it's like a red.
It's pink.
It's
Yeah.
pink, that's the
It's
the
really,
colloquial name for it.
Right.
Right.
yeah,
pink.
it's like cotton candy pink.
Yes,
Yep.
Pepto.
Okay.
but they're empty when we
Right.
we give them to the health cooperative. Okay, any other questions or any?
Guys, any questions?
We'll be in touch.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time.
Thanks, Mark. Who was coming to talk about this? Mark, did you want to talk to us about this?
The
jetty?
jetty, the inlet jetty, Peter's been doing a lot of research on it.
No, I
Okay.
have not, I'm not in the loop on it.
Okay,
I do think it needs to be
yeah,
worked.
I
Yeah.
think we all agree.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Is there
Mark.
something else also for the aquaculture committee with the Flupsies?
I mean, certainly if you want to speak to Mark about it, make an appointment, I'm sure.
John?
I think it's all part of that Long Island Shellfish Initiative that the town's getting money for, and Cornell's getting.
But in terms of the placement of, just being.
I would love to have
Best area.
you guys join us, if you're not on that committee, to weigh in.
I'm on 3 Mile Harbor
Oh, perfect, okay.
and aquaculture.
And I'm aquaculture. So
We
I'm
could all
just
go.
curious as to why
Awesome.
the barrels.
Join.
Well,
Join in.
we'll be leaning on John's experience, and we'll figure it out.
Thanks
Yeah.
very much.
I'll bring the cocktail sauce.
No shrimps.
Oysters are good.
Okay. Jim, are you waiting for your client, or would you like to? You want
Hey,
to do your
Jim.
thing? Okay.
Okay, Jim Walker from InterScience on behalf of Devon Yacht Club. This is a different project than the trustees have reviewed before. It's the main dock, out in the water. This dock has not been subject to permits in the past, never really needed work. The dock has been damaged by the ice and the big tides and the nasty weather that we had this winter. So what we're proposing to do is to replace certain parts of, mostly here, this dock, to replace decking. The decking's lifted, probably high water, but the ice damage as well. The decking's proposed to be replaced with non-treated lumber. Handrails as well are shot and need to be replaced. They're going to be replaced on a slant, the same way that they are currently. And they're all going to be replaced using non-treated lumber. Probably the decking will be epi, which is a tropical hardwood, but they may replace it with Douglas fir. We see Douglas fir used in docks these days, where there's towns that are prohibiting non-treated lumber. Douglas fir has been used and used with some success. Town does allow CC or ACQ treated southern yellow pine, creosote, or pentachlorophenol treated lumber. So what you're going to see there is in-place, in-kind replacement using non-treated lumber. That's a new project for Devon Yacht Club, new project for the trustees. If you haven't seen it before, hasn't need work in the past. They need a permit as quickly as possible.
That was IPay?
EPPI, I don't know how you pronounce it.
The tropical hardwood?
Pay.
There's a lot of different tropical hardwoods. Green heart, purple heart, IPE.
This
you
is,
say
that's
that
an
one?
ironwood,
Epi,
considered an ironwood.
Eki.
It's e-pay.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, basically, it's marketed as cheap teak. Okay, lasts a very, very long time. It's got like a resin or an oil in it, which even working with it, like if you were a termite, you ain't eating this stuff.
Fights
If you were
back
a
at you.
worm,
You can't drive a nail through it, you have to
no, it's
pre-drill
all
it.
it's all pre-drilled. It stands up well. It's being used as a replacement deck material on a lot of houses in lieu of mahogany. Which, you know, when mahogany replaced cedar, the idea was that it had some longevity. In truth, mahogany doesn't have much any more longevity than the cedar does. This e-pay, I know of decks that are 30 years old that are still just as sound as whatever.
I had an opportunity to look at it, as I know Jim did, and I would defer to Jim to make a motion.
Yeah, this came before us a month ago. I'd like to make a motion that we approve this. There's nothing special going on here for all
Well,
intents
in
and
place, in
purposes.
kind?
It's in place in kind, but it's in place in kind with a better material than's being
Right.
used now. And if they do opt to do Doug fir, hey, there's nothing wrong with Doug fir either. It's not going to last as long.
And I would second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is that fast enough?
Before I go home, I have an application in front of you, and I told Clearwater that I would answer any questions that you might have. Clearwater's in for approval of the dredging project, same project that they always ask for the trustees' approval for.
That'd be for the fall dredging?
No,
No,
No, that's,
they couldn't do the dredging this year. They got iced out.
I meant for next fall. It's going to be for next fall or for this spring?
No, it's for this spring. But
The window's getting tight.
we asked for a one-year permit. Well, they don't have any window. Right now, they are asking for an exemption from the Army Corps, but they couldn't dredge during the January 15th. When the window closed on January 15th, they were still iced in. So we have an exemption in front of Ronald Penzone at the Army Corps to give us a 2-day window. Previously, when I first worked for them, that was granted. We expected it would be granted, and they would dredge before April 1st.
we could issue a permit contingent on them procuring the others. I'll make a motion that we approve that.
I'll second it.
Yeah, good.
All in favor?
Yeah. Aye.
That's it.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
You could have done that over the phone.
Yeah. We wouldn't have got to see the
Good to see you.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool, too.
Yeah, thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Actually went up there and took my pictures.
I like the fact
Really
that they
blew up
explained the material being
Chevy.
used and
They always do a good job.
Okay. John's not here yet, so, okay, we're expecting someone else to arrive for public comment. He's not here yet, so when he does, we'll go back to him, if that's okay.
Oh, yes, okay, yeah.
All right, so, new business, 101 LPL LLC, permit renewal for dune restoration.
The beaches?
Beaches.
Yeah, I went over there today. I had a problem reaching the beach from the front of the property. It was too far for me to walk around the other way. I'm not ready to take my vehicle on board yet. I'm getting my four-wheel drive fixed.
No.
However, I did see a good area.
You are welcome to take the trustees.
I know, thank you.
Okay.
I did see an aerial view off of, I don't even know if it was Google. I don't know how recent it is. I don't know how much discussion you want to get into it. I did have a picture that I could pull up and show you up there, but unless, you know, it looks like there is, it's different on both sides. Both the neighbors seem to have a decent dune appearance. This particular property looks like it needs some work.
Is there an application or a sketch or anything on the plan for this restoration
Well,
project?
since I'm going to bring this up later, maybe I can just throw this up here real quick.
I'm not
Give me an idea.
anything.
Hey, Del, are you on beaches?
Yes. How do you start this up again? Control?
Yes.
Control-Alt-Delete,
I didn't know.
and that'll prompt you for the login.
John,
You need that first letter capitalized, I think,
you're going
Del.
to need to,
Yes.
at some point, move over if you want to be on the camera, all right? But, but for this, you might not want it. All right?
Yeah, it's that one.
Camera's right there. Are you watching on TV?
There it is.
This would be the property here. Those would be the neighbors. And as you can see, what the beachfront looks like. Again, I'm not sure how recent this picture is. And again, I couldn't get to the beach. There was a bunch of work trucks there. Nobody was around. I didn't want to just trespass without talking to somebody. It kind of goes through a wooded area. I just wasn't feeling too comfortable about it. I was yelling and screaming. Nobody could. I got one person to come out. He spoke Russian, not very good English. I tried to communicate with him. He didn't seem to want to say too much. I asked him if he worked there. He kind of walked away real fast. So I left it at that. I screamed for a little while, just trying to see if anybody was around. A lot of cars, a lot of open doors, but nobody came out. So I had better luck with the next one. But this one, that's where I kind of left
Do we have
it.
accompanying surveys or a section or anything with this?
I don't see
Well,
it.
it looks like it's a dune restoration, stairway, and sand fence application. So there's 3 components to this
Okay.
application. Have you seen the app, Jim? Do you have a copy of it?
I've
And
got a
isn't it
copy of
is
the
it a
application,
renew?
but I don't have any supporting documents.
Yeah, it would seem like there would typically be a little more to the
Yeah.
application because there was a hard structure involved.
And,
That would be a survey requirement, correct?
You would do.
So I don't think they're
Is there
quite
a hard-
complete
oh,
with their
the,
package
stairway.
yet, though.
Stairways is there.
yeah.
You know, I think once we get into a stairway, we typically look for
Yeah.
a survey
Hey,
to be
hey,
provided.
Del.
Yeah, and this is the stairway that they wanted to replace with a retractable bottom step in the,
Yeah, that's good.
that's what they wanted to do.
That's great. That's great.
Del?
Yes.
I believe we have all the plans, they're just, they haven't completed that initial application that you inspected and approved, and they needed more time. I mean, it's just in the office, it's not attached to here, but the board...
Oh,
approved it.
is one that we approved?
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
one
it's a
you
renew.
approved, they just didn't finish the work yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you remember,
Yeah,
you guys down
it
there.
expired in there.
So we're looking for, I remember
An
this.
extension, that's
Yes,
all of the
I remember this
application.
one. So have they done the sand replenishement?
But what does the letter say?
You know,
Just says they want to renew.
I think,
Yeah, well, it's
from what
not very descriptive.
Yeah,
well, what
it'd be
I
nice
think we
to have.
talked about last time was, I thought that there was some work done, and because of the most recent storms, or the last big storm, that they needed to
Touch it up.
touch it up. It hadn't been completed, but they needed to
When
touch
did
up and
this
get it
one-
back to
Where's
us.
this one first?
Problem, I tell you what, the only problem I have with renewing this is we haven't
14.
truly visited the site. We're looking at an aerial photograph, which is undated. And typically what we would do on this, Del, in the future, don't show up at somebody's house. What makes more sense is call the applicant or their agent, whoever's handling it, and arrange to meet with them and another member of the board over there with it. That way, what happens is you can answer all the questions that are attached to this so that you can bring that information back to the board and convey it. I couldn't make a motion or vote on this tonight. Nobody's looked at it, nobody's seen it.
I definitely would have called. I thought that was the proper thing, but I was actually at a property
Next door.
and I didn't realize it was so close. I went there, everything was wrapped. The house was almost wrapped in burlap. So I figured these people weren't there. And of course, they had a lot of working activity going on there. Nothing on the beach.
Yeah, because Billy Mack's pretty good about it. You want to meet with him.
Yeah, I think meeting him over there or having him come in to discuss it with us.
I think we'll schedule a meeting with him.
Yeah, perfect.
So let's table this for the moment.
Okay.
Okay, application of J&W Realty, sand fence at 15 West End Road.
All right, this one I did see today, and I'll show you some updated pictures that I took. All right, I have better pictures of mine. This was the aerial, just to give you an idea. Here's the property. This one is all sand fenced on the west. And to the right, it looks like they just restored that whole bluff.
That's Zweig.
Is that Zweig?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
It's all coming.
This is interesting.
I thought it looked familiar,
This is interesting because you're going to see in a minute how this has been maintained, because it's pretty bad, and it's got me concerned, and this is why I put so much work into grabbing some photos today. Cool. Here's the property in question.
JW.
Okay? Again, here's all this sand fencing over here, and on the right side, that would be Zweig. You're going to see some good pictures of that. But there's like a 20-foot plus difference recede from the other two properties on both sides. However, there's another view. And by the way, that's a staircase just sitting in the middle. I don't know if it's hers.
No, it's not.
Somebody else is washed up. Okay.
There's no staircases on this property.
Okay. Here's from standing on top of the bluff looking at the house. There's so much property still in between the house and the edge of that bluff. Not sure how that works in regards to what we need to do here, but here's standing from the side. Again, you can see how much it's receded back. And this is from the corner of Zweig's property looking the other way. So you get a really good idea of how much dune has been eroded away. Now, this is what I was getting to, talking about who maintains these sand fences once they're put on the beach. I remember Sandy, as you know, when the ocean starts roaring, I'm down there taking pictures. I'm always down there taking pictures, but even so when there's storms. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen strips of this beach fence, sand fence, getting pulled down the ocean in the water. Now, I know nobody's out there during these storms. However, it's really dangerous. And I don't like the debris in the water, but I don't like any debris in the water. But from a swiftwater rescue person like myself, that's real dangerous stuff to be in the water.
Is that a current picture, Dale?
This is today. I took this today.
Two nor'easters.
This is nothing.
Yeah.
I mean,
fair.
Let's move back. That was that. Here's the rest. This is all Zweig's bluff now. which also kind of bothered me. I don't know, maybe this is okay, but to see lawn sprinklers so close to the beach up on a bluff like that, I understand that's, her property goes to
Okay,
that.
typically,
to that.
typically the irrigation within the village is only allowed as a temporary thing. I don't know whether they enforce
Okay.
above ground.
It just doesn't look beach-like. And of course, this doesn't either. Or it typically does, but I'd rather it not.
In fairness to the client, they should have, time to remove it.
Let me tell
Yeah.
you, Brian, absolutely. But, going down the beach, I just saw more and more and more of this stuff. And I know there's been a storm, but as much time as I spend on the beach, I see this stuff all the time, year-round, pre-storm,
Well, that's
predating any storm.
That's one of the arguments for trying to get a sand fence law that's user-friendly, that's attractive to people to actually go through the process, because as part of that, you're given some documentation and something that identifies this as a legal, legitimate project. Now, that same documentation, a little plastic medallion, when you find that pile of rack, you find that medallion, you can trace the owner
Right.
of that beach.
Oh, that'd be-
back. That's
that's a great
intention.
idea.
But I think we should talk about the actual application before us, as opposed to the neighbors.
True, I understand. Well, we get a good picture, and this is the last picture, just to show you, this is at Georgia Beach. I mean, the village should be keeping this maintained. It's been like that for a long time, okay? And I think it's important. On the other hand, I don't really like that either. That's the western property. I mean, I understand what sand fencing is for, but I tell you, the beaches just don't look between the garbage and these piles of fencing and all the bluffs getting worked on and all these staircases. I tell you, this is not the way I remember these beaches when I was a kid.
I have a question. Is there a time limit with the village as to property owners having to clean up the fencing?
I think it's a matter of
And it comes
notification.
down?
I think it's a matter of notification.
Right. Well, but the permit was granted to the homeowner, so does the homeowner have a legal obligation
Yes.
through that permit to clean it up
Yes.
within a certain period of time?
Now, I don't think there's a real period of time given on that.
Should we not
But
talk about
typically,
that maybe?
typically,
Otherwise, you
Well-
could leave somebody there for 6 months, 8
But
months.
right now, he's talking about an application.
Yeah. No.
Susan, he's talking about an
Yeah,
application.
yeah, I-
Doesn't have to do with that. And
I moved ahead on that, and I
also,
apologize.
no apologies. But I believe we're probably going to have a debate about this in the next meeting or two with the new sand fence application.
good.
So
Right.
why don't we hold off until then?
Yeah, there's a few things I could bring up from that
Yeah.
form, but I'm going to wait.
All right.
I'm gonna
That'd be
wait.
great.
Meanwhile, back to the application. Well, it's obvious there needs to be some sort of a buildup back there. However, she's still got a lot of property in between,
well,
so.
yeah, but Del,
Yeah.
that's almost immaterial
Okay.
to these sand fencing applications. We don't measure the need, okay?
Right, okay.
This isn't a variance
Right, right.
situation. The goal here is to basically build a good, healthy dune in front of these properties.
Right.
How do you do that without trucking in massive quantities of sand?
Right.
Well, there's a lot of sand that blows down the beach on any given day. You've seen it, we've all seen it. You do these zigzag rows, typically there'd be 2 rows of fencing installed. It tends to collect the sand very, very quickly if a weather event like we've had doesn't wash it out. Now, once that sand is accumulated for half to 2/3 of the fence is buried, well, then it's time really when you want to go in and you want to start to install beach grass on it, because even though it's being cut, the beach grass actually will accelerate that accumulation of sand. Doesn't damage the beach grass. It actually encourages and nourishes the beach grass. It'll grow right up through it. And after a period of time, the goal is to have that entire 4 foot of beach grass buried, at which point, once the dune accumulates to a certain point, you can then step out with another row of fencing, and somewhere down the road, step out with another. What happens, though, is we get a weather event. your dune could get scoured back. In the case of Sandy, a lot of properties that we maintain lost 30 feet. We had gained 30 feet. You had 30 feet to lose, okay? It's a plus. We don't allow the fencing to occur way beyond the toe of the dune, simply because now you're impinging on people's ability to negotiate the beach. This property owner, I can't vote on this. They actually hired us to do some of the work, but initially when this woman contacted me, the issue was because hers is the only property that's sort of either not bulkheaded, revetted, or basically armored in some way. What happens is, she says, every time somebody comes down to either check the surf or go fishing, they back their trucks up into this property. And she said the loss of their dune was really the result of every time somebody wants to turn around or park in that area, they back up. Some people back up a little farther than others, and it's kind of aggravated this erosion. So what, initially when she talked to me, she said, is there any way I can take and go from where Zweig ends and kind of connect across? And it was like, no, because you don't gain anything there, because what you actually encourage is wind scouring of the dune behind it. You got to keep that snow fence pretty much tight right to the existing dune. There's nothing to be gained trying to lead too much, because you'll end up having to actually step back and do fencing farther back on your dune. So that's what's going on here.
Yeah, I wouldn't have any problem other than just maybe making it a new thing to just make people more responsible about maintaining these fences. That's my beef.
I think going forward, that's a good opportunity for this board.
Yeah, I
To
think it
update the
should
permit
be-
across, but it's for everyone.
And inspect it. I mean,
Yeah.
who's...
We had,
how come
this was all in the regulations we sent up to the town board.
Yeah, I read that, but, and I like to see it in there, but it just seems like there's a lot of it out there. A lot of fence on the ground.
There's a lot of work
And it
to
should
be
be
done.
cleaned up.
There's a lot of work to be done in doing these site
Yeah,
visits.
yeah.
They're very time-consuming, but that's the only way to really get underneath some of this stuff.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of unpermitted fences out there because the process has been so onerous. So,
And that's one of the problems, Devon, is
Right.
when you get these sort of unpermitted fences. Marine Patrol will, if they know where the fence came from, they'll typically notify us or notify a property owner and say, hey, you got to deal with this. But, yeah, and hey, after the last month with the storms we've had, there's a whole lot of this, and there's a lot of people, property owners, that are completely unaware that this is going on. They're either not here or they're not on the beach.
Yeah. It's a big educational campaign, I think, that we could really undertake to help educate and get more compliance and standards like we're talking about tonight. So good work to be done,
They're preserving their property as well as
as well as the beach.
and the community. They're more apt to want to.
Absolutely.
Sand fence is one of the best things you can do to your,
Yeah, it's the cheapest.
beach. It's the
way to
cheapest,
build
the best way to do it.
but there are responsibilities that come
But
with it.
there are,
And
you know,
as far as the application there's no need for, it's being as complete as possible. I know Jim just said that would be under the construction, right? Is your company?
Yeah.
So what about the attorney? Is there?
There may not be an
for that to
attorney.
be filled in? Okay.
On something as simple as sand fencing, there may not be the need
Right,
for an
right.
attorney.
Okay, I just
So
wanted-
some things are
Just wanted
optional.
to see if, it was a complete application.
One of the things we wanted to do is
That's
to make
another
the
thing.
permit-
Very important.
Okay.
Absolutely.
as simple and economical as possible, because it's kind of like cutting Phragmites. We really encourage
Gotcha.
putting up sand fence. It's one of those things that works well for everybody.
Best practices.
Did you want to make a motion to approve this permit, or?
Sure, I will make a motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Laura, I just wanted on the record, I recused on this.
Okay.
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 Thanks, Del.
Thank you.
Did you want to speak to the board? Steve? No, maybe when you get down to the agriculture, maybe. Okay. All right. Yeah. Take a nap, we'll wake you up when we get there. All right, we're down to 3 Mile Harbor, ZBA, public hearing notice of 3/6, application of Robert and Gail Stone at 32 3 Mile Harbor Drive.
I took a look at that. That was on the last week's ZBA agenda. They discussed it. I asked them to hold the record open till Wednesday because we just got this, I think it was Monday. Their meeting was Tuesday. We hadn't had a meeting yet, so they agreed to that. So this is, it's basically a tear down in 3 Mile Harbor.
You want me to show you an aerial? I've got a picture.
A little bit up from Hands Creek on 3 Mile Harbor Drive. It's in for a natural resource special permit. It doesn't require any variances. But it's a tear down of a very small, old, little cottage. And it looks like maybe an accessory well house or small shed. And building a house and a pool and a boathouse on it.
What? What's the pool? There's no pool.
Can I just see the,
No, it's not built.
They're not building a pool. This is my sister's. My sister is Gail Stone. They're not tearing, all they want to do is move the house forward, put it on a foundation so they can live in it full time. They don't want to raise it. They don't want to go second story. They don't want a pool. They don't want to do anything to the woods back here.
There's a pool on
do
the
we have a copy of, yeah, because on this
description of the
site
survey
plan,
just
it's showing a
show different
proposed
information.
final pool, 15 by 30.
They were going to come tonight, and they didn't feel like we had any jurisdiction at this point as far as what the ZBA was
Well, we
trying
just
to.
have an opinion
Well, we
as
don't.
neighbors.
We don't have
We're a neighboring property.
Right.
And I guess that raises the question, Chris, I'm not sure
Is this
if you
pencil,
spoke to- The pencil is the existing.
is the approximate,
house.
like, existing?
No, it is it's on the survey. It was
Oh, you
very
just drew,
hard-
you
very
just,
hard to
you
see
just
the
drew
line.
over it?
Yeah.
Okay, so the existing house is being removed, the house is being moved back. Does it show the existing septic system?
Yeah, that's up here. It's a new septic system, but my understanding is the requirement for a new house is going to be one of the new
Nitrous, yeah.
removing
Okay,
septic. So I think that's part of probably be part of the
okay.
determination. I guess the only thing I really wanted to
Bill?
have the board discuss
Down here is the application, though.
was the general concept of, replacing smaller structures with much larger structures
How big is?
adjacent to
can I
the
just-
harbor.
And
What
introducing a
impact-
pool,
Pardon me?
and introducing a swimming pool.
Well, I mean, it's all behind, they don't need a variance for anything. So it's all, they need natural resource special permit.
Right.
I mean, the main concern I saw with this property is that where the pool is proposed and the boathouse is sort of a swale. You can see it on the contour lines there. And I think the pool's going to kind of fit down into that swale area. I think the house is a little bit higher, and then the pool surface will be down into the swale area now. But that's a natural drainage, sort of a conduit.
He made that.
Into-
He made that because the drainage that was there was eroding the whole bluff. So he diverted it off to drain like that, so it would save that, what was there, the existing bluff.
That swale is man-made?
No, I mean the edge of the bluff and where he diverted that,
You mean down by the beach?
Yeah.
That bluff? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I mean up in the property. I mean, it's...
oh, no, I mean up on the property to where the water would go from the property off to the side and down. I wish they would have came tonight, because they could have discussed this. I didn't know anything about the pool, that's all.
Well, I mean, I don't think, it's within our jurisdiction to discuss the particulars
Yeah.
of the application. It's just the generalities
Can I
of...
ask what a boathouse is?
Usually a
Do you have any
structure
idea?
near the water's edge, often on a dock.
Boats.
Yeah. This doesn't, but this doesn't seem like an appropriate place for boathouses.
No,
I
I think it-
envision.
Well,
It's
I
a-
think it's really more like a small garage.
It's kind of like a pool house, too, I think. It's right on the pool.
No, it can't be a pool house. It can't be, you can't have a
I
400
mean, very
square
often a
foot.
boathouse
You
is
can't have a
over the
400
water.
square foot
Yes, and they
pool
drive
house.
under.
Yeah.
Pool house can only be 200
Maybe that's
square
why it's a
feet.
boat.
Usually a boathouse has some way to get into the water.
Basically, there's the path to the water comes up to the boathouse, so they're allowed, I think, a 4-foot wide access path to the water. That goes down the swale, so it is kind of a natural place to put the access path.
So they'll
And it
probably
comes up
store
to-
kayaks in there or whatever.
Well, it's 20 by 20. It's a pretty good-sized place to store kayak.
Drone going?
Kayaks.
Yeah.
Canoes.
Is there any plumbing involved?
Well, it doesn't show any.
Boat.
That generally comes later. The plumbing.
Behind the drywall?
I'm kind of confused myself at this point, because
You didn't know.
from what my understanding was, they didn't want to change anything. In fact, the reason that it was such a concern was because on both sides, the lawn is neon green, is all cleared and goes right to the dunes. And here, he's planted blueberries up on the top and leaving the trees in place so it would, create,
Well,
Black
I'll just
rose.
read the applicant
Yeah.
is before the board to demolish the existing structure on the property and construct a new 2,850 square foot, one-story resident, attached garage, porches and terraces, an accessory boathouse, swimming pool with patio and generator within jurisdiction of tidal waters of 3 Mile Harbor. All structures are located over 100 feet from the tidal wetlands and over 50 feet from the top of the bluff, requiring a natural resource special permit.
Okay, but all of this falls within the rules of the zoning then?
Yeah.
So why is it even?
They're slightly, well, the only reason we're noticed on this is that we're an adjacent property owner.
Right.
And my only point is sort of following up on the point that we discussed last meeting, or maybe it was 2 meetings ago, about the other piece of property over on the other side of the harbor, which wanted a pool that did require variances. The house had been built just a couple of years ago. Now they came in for a pool on the water side of the house, and should we weigh in
Right.
as stewards of the harbor to
That was a much smaller property.
be
than I-
concerned about the precedent that this might set for the neighborhood? That was,
Right.
From a variance perspective.
Well,
from a variance perspective, from, allowing
Overall health
pools
of
on
the
the accessory structures down closer to the water than they were.
John, how many feet from the harbor is the pool? On this application, is it denoted?
I think it's I don't know, do you see that, Jim?
what, it's all, no, you know what, they've kept everything back, guys,
it's 100
to where they don't need variances. Okay, so, but the question here is proposed clearing. I mean, typically what's going to happen here is the town's going to be asking for some kind of scenic easement.
I think that's in there, down in that shaded area to
Yeah,
the water.
and that's what it,
Yeah.
that's what it looks like. As far as our interest in this, quite honestly, guys,
Well, the only interest that I wanted the board to consider would be our interest as stewards of the health of the harbor in terms of, maybe not maximizing the use of property, but increasing the use of properties adjacent to the harbor, and the impacts that that might have on the harbor that may not be impacting it now with, the small cottages that are there.
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to, not want to, just leave it up to the
Does anybody else
ZBA.
want to look at this?
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
Everything along that stretch is a big house, yeah?
Right.
I mean, of 10 houses, from the beginning of that street to that house, 7 of them have pools.
Right, I'm sure
So-
they'll be granted.
Yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
But it's just, as again, the stewards of the health of the harbor, do we want to just reiterate to the ZBA to make sure they cross all their Ts and dot all their Is with respect to making sure that the structures they're approving are, as friendly to runoff and impacts that that they may have on the water quality.
That being said, you could almost have a standard paragraph
Yeah,
that
sure.
says just that.
Right.
If we didn't have anything that we were specifically concerned about.
Well,
And that would allow us to weigh in.
Well, yeah, but guys, I think that the town, the natural resources and the ZBA appear to be trying to mitigate the impacts of the new and larger house by implementing a scenic easement. Okay, if you look at the survey, the coverages are below what's allowable. Okay, so they haven't really reached that threshold. They're not asking for a variance on these things. And, we want to be good stewards, but at the same time, I don't know that we can challenge our existing zoning codes in the process.
Yeah, these guys aren't asking to change, to...
No,
to-
they've flown in here with, they've got the setbacks to do this where, all they're applying for, and the only reason they need a natural resources special permit, this is an H-pod. Every property needs a natural resources special permit. It's not because they're knocking the house down. It's not because they're building a bigger house. They need it because it's part of the code. Every property that's waterfront is required to do that.
No, it's good to see that, there's not variances required. And, that's one of my concerns is many applications require variances. Here we have someone that has a clean application. So I think that's a really positive step. I do have one question. There's some type of proposed fencing along the bluff line. SLT fencing? Is it Silt fence?
Oh, I think
That's a
for
requirement.
construction.
During construction?
So it's the hay bale fence?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I don't have a problem with, being in compliance with code. I think that's a positive step.
And I think it's a good
And we should
discussion.
encourage more people to
Yeah.
bring applications like this.
It's a good discussion to
table.
have early on too, with new members and, adding any, further discussion, and that's good.
John, to your point, I think when we see variances, I think that standard weighing in is extremely
Yep.
appropriate. I just don't know if we're overreaching when we have an application that I'm going to call kind of clean, that doesn't require variances, because I don't think anything's going to change no matter what, you say in the weigh-in letter, so to speak.
Now, have we asked to keep the record open?
Till Wednesday.
Well, and do we basically send a memo back to the ZBA saying that we're not challenging their,
well, do you want to, is there consensus on the board that that's what we want to do?
well, I'm asking that.
Yeah, I think it's important.
I think we could either send something or not send something.
I would be in favor of sending something that we, thank you for the time to review the application, and based on what we discussed, put it in a paragraph and let it go into the folder.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, and the only reason I think
It's important.
that would be a good idea is this
Yeah.
board did develop a bit of a reputation in the past for coming in and without really reviewing somebody's application, just as a blanket request to hold hearings open. And, it's costing an applicant real dollars when you do that, and it's really unfair. Unless we have a real issue that we're going to try and put forth, and when we do, that's when we should attend the public hearing and convey our concerns in person, or prepare something,
For the sake of just holding something back.
yeah.
No, communication's
Makes
professional.
Adversarial.
Yeah, along those lines, I mean, I did talk to Denise Severese about the timing of us getting these things, and they're going to get a lot better. She's got some help now.
You don't have these, she got sick for a little while, and she was doing a really good job of keeping in touch with us, so.
The other thing that I started thinking about, I talked to Denise about it, was I just was wondering, like, we own the harbor, the trustees own the harbor and trust for the people, but it's an ownership kind of a deal. Why aren't we notified as an adjacent property owner on any of these things?
We should be.
We've asked several
And
times.
I think that's been a long-standing back and forth between the trustees and the ZBA.
Well, I think it's one of those things that we're getting closer to that, where I think that what happens is, I think our local attorneys and permit expediters really need to get into the routine of notifying us, because the fact that we haven't been notified, technically, as an adjacent property owner, we could show up at the hearing and say, listen,
We never got notified?
we were never notified, you cannot hold this hearing.
Well, I'm not sure how,
And that's,
legitimate.
and you know what?
You do it once or twice, you'll start being notified.
If you do that as part of a ZBA application and you omit an adjacent property owner, or for some reason the sign blows down or something, and it's documented that the property wasn't properly posted, they won't hold the hearing. They'll have to reschedule the hearing. So, we may very well have to do that.
For one?
To show up for one. And
I think it's my understanding that these notifications have to be done by the applicant, not
Yes.
by the ZBA.
Yes, they do. And they've
So
gotta
it
be-
seems, I'm not sure what regulates the definition of a neighbor,
Well,
but I don't know,
think
Chris,
that-
did you get a chance to talk to?
No, I haven't.
ZBA
Look into
attorney?
that this week and try to get a hold of these attorneys and find out what it's going to take to kind of push that on the applicants a little bit, because it's the applicant's requirement, as you said.
Well, I think we may be forced to actually push the issue
Right.
at a hearing, that we weren't notified. If you do that once or twice, I'm sure we're going to start to get notified a lot more frequently.
Is that something the trustees want to do for this particular file, is maybe have the attorney and another one of us show up at this next ZBA hearing?
Not on this one.
This one, no, I think it's
We
this
don't
one.
really have anything that
We
we
don't really have
What
any,
we do want to do, Chris, though, is have, I think, a memo drafted, and perhaps you could help the gals in the office to say at this time we have no comment or further input on the project.
One way, but not.
And then the other is, we do have comments. So we do need two boilerplates that go in
But
both
the other is,
directions.
moving forward, is being notified the same way the adjacent properties are.
Yeah, and I don't know if Chris can help us with that or not, but we do want to get a communication off by Wednesday of this week.
Right.
Yeah,
We just
well,
have no specific
That's,
objections to
that's
this.
for this application.
Correct.
This question of notification is really a larger,
Yeah, no,
Right.
generalized question.
That's separate from this application, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that needs to be continued, and I don't know which of our committees is best suited to perform this outreach, but maybe it's something that, one of the committees needs to take on,
See, to me, this
Or
might
the-
be a lawyer to lawyer.
or the attorney.
My input is there may be a way to request they update this application a little bit to sort of push them and include and make sure they're including all adjacent property owners, including any governmental entities, whether it be us or anybody else, state parks, things like, so maybe there's a way we can push them to update that application itself to let these applicants know, hey,
Let them know.
you need to let everybody know, not
Notice.
just private homeowners, we need to notify everybody that's, has a property boundary with your property.
And I
So
think,
that's something I'm happy to sort of spearhead a little bit and look into.
and I think it would
I think
be
it's worthwhile.
valuable in the sense that would give every property owner that applies for something
Right.
a very good understanding that their neighbors with
Procedure.
a governmental entity that's holding land in trust for the rest of the public.
Sure. Good point, John.
Sorry, I confused you with all that. I had no clue.
So who's going to draft the letter?
Well, I think Chris was going to help us.
I mean,
create-
back to the
No, as far as
ZBA
this
by Tuesday,
particular.
by Wednesday.
Well, Chris, can you help with this, work with John on a short-term
Definitely.
basis to
Maybe we'll
get him
together
something for
tomorrow, or
Wednesday?
Phone or email, we'll get something.
And make that the boilerplate going forward for an acceptable application.
Right, we want two responses. One, we have no further comment, and another one that we do have comment, and either here it is, or it's...
Here are the
gonna be coming
bullets
up.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, John.
Billy Mack, do you want to speak to us?
I do, yeah. Thanks. Couple things first. I noticed that.
Can you come up to the podium?
Sure.
Thanks.
Hi, Billy Mack, First Coastal. I noticed 101 Lily Pond Lane on the agenda for dune restoration. That's just a renewal. Sorry, I came in late. It's at a Village of Sag Harbor meeting. Is that anything that needs my attention?
It does. Bill, we tabled it because nobody's seen the site in the past year, so maybe, give me time on Wednesday morning?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
let's do something fairly early.
Good, good. All right, that's easy. I don't think we're going to get done
Bill,
before
you
flower
available?
season
Sure.
anyway
Okay,
at this point.
all right.
We have a time, or?
I don't know, it's a good time for you. Daylight early. You know, 5:36.
Jim, does that mean we're not dating anymore?
Oh, no, you come too.
That's all right.
We'll carpool it. No, please. I don't really feel safe without you.
I'm busy early morning. How about like 10?
10 o'clock.
Is that good?
It's going to have to be.
All right. All right, 101.
Did you do the steps and the boardwalk and all that stuff over there?
No, we haven't done anything yet there yet.
So what have you done?
Nothing. We were planning on doing it prior to plover season,
Okay,
which is coming up.
okay, so let's,
So,
yeah, we don't have much time.
yeah, not a lot of time, obviously.
So let's see, let's look at it Wednesday.
Yeah, okay, good. And then John Shaka from Sag Harbor Water Quality Initiative was supposed to be joining tonight.
Yep,
and his
we have him on the
meeting's running
agenda.
late. So I'll either wait for him and we can do it at the bare end, if you guys have questions.
Well, we can do it when he comes in.
Yeah, we'll wait for John. He told us he was coming late.
Somebody just pulled up. It might have been him. Saw some lights.
Okay. I think that's all I got, other than the sand fencing, shoreline fencing policies. Just love to check up on that. I see it's on the agenda.
Yeah, we're pushing that to
Good.
try and get it adopted by the town so we can actually
Cool.
start using that as a criteria.
Good. Okay. All right, appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, old business, Georgia Capon dredging. Let's see, we have the south inlet, we have the, okay, let's start with the south dredging. We have all the permits in place. We are not going to be able to start that project this spring because of the storms and the very close window of April 1st. So we are planning to open the pond, though, just so everyone's aware. Sometime after this storm passes, we don't know exactly the date. We got the final permits for this other bottleneck. So that's, who's doing that work, do we know?
No, not yet.
We don't know yet, okay.
Is that with Bruce, or?
That's Bruce.
That's Bruce's,
but
yeah.
He doesn't have a contractor yet. He had originally engaged one guy, then that guy didn't pan out, and then he engaged the guys that were looking to use like a vacuum pump, and it would be handheld down there to do that, and the DEC, they weren't thrilled with that methodology, so I think he's back to not square one, because we've got the permit, but he's got to get somebody with a small dredge for that in there to do this.
Regarding the south inlet, do we need to hold a vote to authorize the clerk to open the pond
Well,
before the next meeting?
You can, however, if you recall, there's a resolution that is passed at the beginning of the year that authorizes the clerk to open the pond.
Okay, so everyone's good with the opening if it takes place before the next meeting?
All right, and as far as that dredging project goes, we're looking at October 1st to start that. All right.
Great. Thank you, Francis.
Okay, and the trustee policies and sand fencing, had a brief discussion about.
So may I ask a question on the sand fencing? Chris, have you been in touch with the town attorney on expediting that, or is that something that you're planning to undertake in the near future regarding the shoreline fencing procedures?
I just spoke to Jim about this for the first time this evening, and I just kind of got the drafts here, so I'm going to go over the drafts a little bit, and I do plan to move forward with that. One thing that I think Susan made a good point on was maybe getting a little more teeth to the idea that it needs to get cleaned up as it reads now. It sounds like the only way you have to clean it up is just if they're not going to give you the next permit. So maybe we can add in there something along the lines of a time period that it needs to be cleaned up once notified that there's an issue, because as it stands, basically you don't have to clean it up until you go for your next permit. And I think everybody would agree that's really not sufficient.
Okay.
So we can talk more about that, or maybe
Yeah,
right
do you want to
now.
4 up another draft and bring it to the next meeting?
Yeah.
Final review by the board, or send it around
Is there some
prior to the meeting?
timeframes that you guys would have in mind that, whether it's 4 to 8 weeks or 12? I don't know what.
Well, we've been waiting for this to take place for quite some time.
No, I mean for some sort of penalty in the event that these things don't get cleaned up.
Well, how are we going to know? I mean, I don't want to see the board become the police.
Right.
I mean, that's not what we're here to do.
Is there a notification in place now from the town?
Without site visits,
Stuff winds up
you know,
We send out
unidentifiable
notifications that your
3
permit
miles away from
will
where
expire or anything like that? Because
started
then you
its
can say.
life.
No, it's usually up to the
Well,
permit
Chris, I think
holder.
you could leave it more open, where upon discovery or notification of, damage or other debris associated with your fencing, something that covers both proactive notification and passive occurrence, so that it's more completely covered.
Okay.
Site visits are great. When we have a more complete portfolio of sand fencing applications, which right now we don't have as many as we should, then I think we can drive the process more. But the lack of the applications right now are really hurting our ability to be better administrators of these projects.
Well, could we not just inspect?
Well, you can, but right now you don't have, there's a lot of projects out there without permits.
No, but I mean, if you drove down the beach and saw the fences that weren't in place, they're obviously not serving a purpose other than being debris.
Well, it seems to me that the Marine Patrol could
Exactly.
fulfill that
There's a
function.
cooperation there.
And if this,
Sure.
this becomes a part of the town law, I mean, the Marine Patrol would be working for,
We've removed,
They cooperate very nicely with us, so there just needs to be, I think, a little more of a proactive engagement with them. And, Jim and I had talked about trying to send out maybe a form letter to every oceanfront property owner, introducing the fact that we have new sand fencing guidelines, and we'd really like everyone to apply for their permit and work to a standard that is more user-friendly, more effective, and enables the overall beachfront to be managed properly.
maybe we
That's an
could,
excellent idea, but also I do think there should be a time limit, that if you are notified that your fence is now in disarray or it's become
Right.
debris, that a period of 12 weeks, certainly before Memorial Day begins,
I
it
don't-
should be removed.
I don't disagree, but we're just not there yet.
No, I know, but when
We
we
don't-
are, in
Yeah,
that letter,
of course.
the
Well, I
letter that's
think-
sent out,
yeah,
or,
well, You
reminding
should definitely
people that
speak with Chris about
an
about
annual-
doing that.
so
your
after
permit
Chris's,
is for a
yeah,
year, and
yeah, after Chris has done with his conversation with the town attorney, we should have a discussion based on all this stuff. 'Cause a lot of the
Certainly
fence
give
now
Chris your
winds up
input for the
like 2 miles away from where it originated with no way of telling it apart. I know, I think I personally removed about 50 miles of it.
Yeah.
So I mean,
So my cursory review of this, just in the last hour or two, it looks pretty good. So what I'll do is I'm going to review it. Maybe I'll respond to the beach committee with some comments or questions. We can kind of circle the wagons on this thing and be ready to move forward by the next meeting. Does that sound good?
Yeah, because, I didn't go through it in detail, and what I did go through was interesting. I'd like to go through the whole thing and kind of converse with you about it as well.
Billy, do you want to comment while we're on this topic?
Sure, yeah, I just was going to request a copy of that, just so I can put some comments in there. That's appropriate or not.
Yeah.
So, sure. I'm happy to add my 2 cents.
Okay, and maybe you want to...
That would help us out?
No, but we do most of the fencing installation. If we do see damaged fence, we pick it up automatically as a service to our clients. But I do see other fences that are there that are clearly not ours, and we do pick those up as well sometimes. But I know the town doesn't do that service, so we try to do that where we can.
So, Billy, are you going to join us at the next meeting then? So we can
Yeah.
go over this further? When do you plan on it?
Can you pass that?
Yeah, for this conversation, okay.
Well, we will be continuing the conversation
Yeah.
if we make revisions, so...
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll read this and give some comments. Thanks.
Yeah, I see, John just came in. We want to just,
John Parker, John Shaka.
Hello, Sag Harbor.
Yeah, you right down there.
we can do that.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, nice to see you.
Likewise.
Can you just introduce yourself for everyone at home?
John Shaka. I'm the chair of the Harbor Committee for the Village of Sag Harbor. So the Harbor Committee is one of the administrative boards. We permit things. We also advise all sorts of things related to the water and the past couple of years, water quality. So we've been putting a focus on that. You may have heard talk about what we're trying to do and what we are doing. So I don't know.
Can you give us a little background, please, John?
Sure. For the past 3 years, I'd say, the Harbor Committee has been aware and focused on the need for paying attention and putting a spotlight on the quality of the water in Sag Harbor. And we're also aware that it wasn't being done. No one was testing the water, really. I mean, you have Havens Beach and you have the county testing there for bathing purposes. There's a little bit of DEC work going on for shellfish operations, but no one was doing any comprehensive testing. And then if we were looking around and coming to meetings out here and looking at you folks here, we would see the work that you were doing with Dr. Gobler, for example. And we're highly impressed by that and getting a little envious. So we have 2 members here also in the Harbor Committee, and we've really been putting a focus on how can we get water testing done in Sag Harbor so that we can know what's there. And so we can, I don't have to tell you how we can establish a baseline, how we can compare different seasons, how we can look at what the real problems are and see how it changes year to year, and maybe how Sag Harbor compares to further east, where you folks have been doing some testing already. So we went to Dr. Gobler, actually, after seeing him here, and said, hey, can you do some of your testing a little bit west of where you are, just kind of push it over a bit. And he put a proposal together for us at the Harbor Committee level. We don't have, we're not elected, and so we don't have control over the finances, but he put together a very nice proposal in December of 2016. The Harbor Committee embraced it fully. It was for approximately $30,000, and we forwarded it to the mayor and the village trustees and asked that they try to fund it. Not surprisingly, the village doesn't have a lot of money. They were unable to fund it, but they were willing to consider alternative means of, they're supportive of the idea, and they encouraged me to go out and try to find other funding for it. So luckily, I have really great people that work with me at the Harbor Committee level, and Mary Eddie has been really, she just doesn't stop at pushing and trying to find other sources. So she has been connecting with, most recently, the Sag Harbor Yacht Club. And I'd say for the past 5 months, 6 months, we've met on a monthly basis. And they have their own water quality concerns and a group of people who've been working on trying to figure out what they can do to help. So our interests merged. And they were willing to talk about creating a public-private partnership, say. And we decided, we didn't know what we were doing exactly, but we just decided to have these conversations, and in the end, we've created what we're calling the Sag Harbor Water Quality Initiative. It's a public-privet partnership to fund testing by Dr. Gobler. And our immediate goal is to get monitors in the water hopefully in the next month, and to fund it for the next year. You've seen the kinds of proposals that the kind of work he does, so he'll put the monitors out there, and he'll give us some updates, of course, over time. And a year from now, he'll give us a report. And there's been indication by the Yacht Club and other private contributors that they'd like to see this ongoing. If we can come up with a means of funding it, great. So we're doing what we can. To date, let me back up a bit. When we got involved, when we had conversations with the Yacht Club, they had specific concerns that needed to be addressed. So the proposal was modified somewhat. They wanted to have potentially an additional, instead of 4 monitoring stations in the water, maybe 5. They wanted to look for specific things that were of concern to them, and Gobler thought that's a good idea. So the number has increased to 52,000? Well, 5 monitoring stations.
It's 36,000 for monitoring stations, and then there's like sometime during the next year, based on the results and modeling techniques, looking at the sources of nitrogen.
So that's another 16,000 there. So I think
that's another 16.
That's Marianne Eddy from the Harbor Committee, and she's been really great. And so I think it's 52,000-ish is what we're looking for. But we want to get these, that portion of the modeling of nitrogen can come later. It doesn't have to start right away, but we want the stations in the water pronto. And that's approximately $37,000 or so. And we have raised, we have, Billy Mack is here as well. He's been sitting with us at the Yacht Club, which has been great. He contributed greatly. We've raised, I think, $28,000 or almost 30 at this point. I mean, I say raised, we've been pledged that. The Village of Sag Harbor has found $7,500, I think, to contribute to what they can afford. The Yacht Club has pledged $15,000. The Sag Harbor Partnership, which is the group in Sag Harbor that is behind the cinema, for example, they've pledged us $6,000. Another Harbor Committee member who lives in Sag Harbor, he's pledged $1,000. So that's our first private contributor. Just tonight at the Harbor Committee level, we talked about it in public for the first time as a group, and Tommy Schiavone was there, and he was fully supportive of it, and he said, look, our budget is set right now, but, talk with us, and gave us his card. And one of the Hampton trustees was there as well, fully supportive. He said they don't have the money right now, but he's supportive of the idea. So that's where we are. And I'm coming to you, we're still trying to raise, spread the word about it, raise interest about it generally. I think the more stakeholders involved, the more success we'll have going forward, particularly if we go year to year. And to the extent that you can afford to chip into this, that'd be greatly appreciated. And it goes toward a great cause.
Are you on social media?
Yeah, we need to do that as well. And we haven't pulled that trigger yet because we just didn't go through all the bureaucratic hoops to make sure we're all set up. Supposedly tomorrow, the Sag Harbor trustees will be voting on appropriating that $7,500. So then I'll feel more confident to go forward more publicly in a social media way. I'll have to find a young person who knows how to do that, because I don't. But we'll work on that.
John, this board has been, as you know, very, very proactive about water quality testing, and I think in spirit, we're behind you 100%, and I think there could be a discussion for a modest contribution going forward. But, as a board, we manage a lot of bottom land, and, we do, issue permits for moorings and bottom land management, and historically, we were engaging with you guys on a bigger kind of management plan for the new jurisdictional area. And, I think, with us embracing you on something like water quality testing now, we'd like to see maybe a little more embracing from the Sag Harbor side on the management plan that we were working on over 2 years ago. So, I hope this is an opportunity also as a stepping stone to see that bigger management plan come to fruition for the expanded jurisdictional area.
Rick, I don't disagree with you at all. And as I explained earlier, the Harbor Committee is not the governing body of the Village of Sag Harbor. So I think it's fair to say that the Harbor Committee embraces you right back and has for a long time.
Sure.
And
I know
fully
that.
support the work you guys do. And in fact, a year ago, we put John Parker, who's here, spent a lot of time working on crafting a new suggested harbor management plan for the village.
Thank you, John. I know you did a lot of hard work.
And that was submitted to the village a year ago, and it is still being discussed at that level. So the game is not over, but we keep doing what we can to encourage different ways of managing the waters and the expanded jurisdictions.
Sure.
And I think, to be fair, I think to a certain extent becoming a stakeholder in this particular process might be helpful for you folks, I would say, because you will literally have a seat at the table about this issue, and hopefully that goodwill will extend to other issues as well.
Right. Well, yeah, I think, if we had a couple weeks to kick it around and talk about it, maybe we could bring this up again at our next meeting a little more formally.
Great.
So, does anyone else have any questions for John?
Just very generally speaking, where are the locations you're interested in testing, and what exactly are you going to be testing for?
That Sag Harbor is divided half and half, more or less, between East Hampton and Southampton, so it's important to us to make sure that both sides were represented. So we have two, originally, the original proposal had 2 stations in the coves, in the cove complex, and 2 on the outside the bridge, on that side on the East Hampton side. Because of the Sag Harbor Yacht Club's concerns, there's a 3rd now station just outside the breakwater. So one, to be specific, one monitoring station would be inside the breakwater, proximal to the discharge of the sewage treatment plant. One would be the 5th, if we can afford that. One would be exterior to the breakwater to allow us to compare the waters inside versus outside at the same time.
How far into the cove are you? How far into
One of them is way back toward, close to Otter Pond, if you know where that is. So back that way, near the outlet of that in the cove complex.
Way up in the cove.
Yeah, one's way up in the complex, and then one is more in Morris Cove, I believe, off of Glover Street, I think is where. But it's a little bit fungible at the moment, but that was the proposed location. And then one was, a 5th one is over toward the Havens Beach side, along that, somewhere over there.
Okay.
Yeah.
There'll be 3 locations in East Hampton waters.
That's right.
But to what we're testing for, I think we're going to test for those dinoflagellates, which are the harmful algae.
Could you come up to the podium, please? And share that with
Yeah,
the
we
public?
have a viewing community that would want to hear you.
And just introduce yourself.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann Eddy. I'm a member of the Harbor Committee in Sag Harbor. So you'd asked specifically what we're going to be testing for and where. I think John covered very well where. But what we're going to be testing for are the dinoflagellates, which are a family or species. I'm not sure how it all goes in Latin nomenclature. But those are the family, if you will, of the harmful algae that end up causing so much disruption to our environment out here, plus pathogenic bacteria. That's one aspect of it. But then we're also going to be studying like the way the environment has changed, either promoting the growth of algae or as a result of the growth of algae. So we'll be studying, dissolved oxygen, pH, salinity,
et cetera, et cetera. I wish I had my notes, I don't. But along those lines, those kind of parameters. We can send you the talking points that really distill all that. Yes?
No,
Oh,
but I actually have the proposal here.
I thought you had oh, you do?
I have
Oh, you had the
here, so
proposal, right.
If you,
Yeah.
Right.
You sent us a soft copy, but if you want to leave one with us tonight, that'd be
Here you go.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
will do. Yeah.
So,
Anyone else?
No?
Well, thank you all for listening. I really appreciate your
Thank you
time.
for coming, John.
I'm
Thank you
sorry
so
we're
much.
so late. We just left a meeting in Sag Harbor.
No, that's okay.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
We'll be in touch, and I'll
We
send you
look
a copy.
forward to doing something. It's
so
all good.
Thank you, sir.
I have this dream that you guys have this great water testing program that's been in place for a while, is that you just take in this little lonely monitoring station off of Havens Beach and extend what you...
Keep dreaming,
bring
sister.
along that's my dream, right?
See what we can do.
That would be really great. Thank
Good.
you. We'll name it after you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks for coming.
I can just add quickly, John Parker, also from the Harbor Committee. I mean, one, this idea for the water testing came from you. We came to the reports of Dr. Gobler of his testing, and I can't remember which of the trustees, but at least one of you came to me and suggested afterwards maybe we should look into expanding this, his testing to include the waters in Sag Harbor, and we've been working on it since. But I just wanted to address quickly a comment that Rick made. I mean, we're still working on what I was here talking to you about 2 years ago, in terms of a management plan for the bay and the area where we extended the village's jurisdiction. I've had discussions about it today, and your suggestions and comments are still welcome, and work with you on it. And
Do you have a draft document that's been prepared, or that's being kicked around, or you're still working on that?
No, there was documentation prepared last year, actually, which was submitted, and it's still being worked on. There was a desire to delay things for a year and see how the first year went out there, and we're currently working on village legislation.
John, can we get a draft of the latest version at some point?
I'll work on that. I'm not allowed to release it for legal issues right at the moment, because it's legislation in preparation, and then the lawyers don't want to release it.
But John, I just want to remind you that when we went through that process with you, that we were having a seat at the table in that document. We were supposed to basically have input too.
I understand that. I'm very well aware of that.
So when you tell me that you're working on legislation, you know what it says to me? It says we're working on legislation that we're going to try and get through before we let, your partners in this invest their interest. So.
I know some of our input is in it, but I think in fairness, we should get a look at the new developments.
Obviously, any proposed legislation has to be open for public comment, will be published, and you'll be asked for specific, input. I can promise you that. I have to abide right now by what the attorneys say in terms of we shouldn't make public what we're proposing until it gets to a certain point when they're ready to publish it for that input. Any suggestions based upon what we've talked about before are certainly welcome, and I can tell you that any suggestion that you've made so far has been reviewed and is included in it.
It's almost like going to a dance and your date says they're going to use the bathroom and she never comes back. This has been a long time.
I keep coming back, though.
I know, just saying.
And you know where to get a hold of me.
It's frustrating, Sounded like a really...
Thank you, folks. I promise you we will continue working on this, and we'll do our best to get back to you in a positive way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
So, friends, I'll give this to Lori and Arlene, that can make copies.
Thank you, Brian.
You always have a good punchline, right?
I thought that was funny.
All right, back to committee reports. ZBA public hearing, application for Rosenwald, 100 Runnymede Drive.
Yes, that is mine. I went to the zoning board, and it had been canceled. Denise Verisi spoke to me, and as well as Tyler. And I did go up to the property. There are 3 variances that are being requested, so right away, I think that I read fully the ZBA's comments. I think the person at the time was DeAndrea, the planner. And they are looking for the 3 variances with setbacks. It looks as though, well, look at my pictures. Here we go. These are the pictures that I took, and I kind of tend to take quite a few. They have a staircase that they don't have a permit for. What they want to do, it's the size location is 21,300 square feet, and they would like to demolish the existing residence, which is currently about, I think it's about 3,400 square feet, or 30, and they want to construct a 3,500 square foot house, 672 square foot pool, terrace. There is some notation here that they have plantings that were not there before. Rosa rugosa, salt and spray rose, non-native shrub. So I took several pictures, and those are the ones that I brought before, but I was going to go to the ZBA meeting, but it has been canceled.
It's been canceled or postponed?
Excuse me, canceled that night, postponed to a later date, because they did not have a full zoning board at that time. I think there were only 3 people. This is a survey of the property and what they wish to do. So I did read the full zoning board, the planner's report, and it seems to me that they have some serious issues that,
So will the public comment period end at the hearing, or will it be held open after the meeting? That's,
I do not know the answer to that question, but I will
and it's
find
not,
out.
the new meeting hasn't been scheduled yet?
No,
Okay.
not that I know of.
All right, so why don't you keep us
But I'm
posted?
going to hold on to it and
Yeah.
continue to follow up.
Okay, does anyone else care to see the pictures?
Sure.
Great, thanks, Susan.
Yeah, thank you, Susan, that's good.
Site visits are always important to really get it. The site visits are always important.
Yes, I found it very educational.
Yep.
Okay. Connolly, notice of completion of Bulkhead project, 217 Kings Point Road.
Has anyone been out to see that?
Yes, I did, and I took pictures, and they're on the computer.
Okay.
I put them in a little file. It's a 1-story property. They have a pool on the water side. The bulkhead looks to be completed. I'm sorry, I left my iPhone at home, so I don't have more pictures, but
Is there an as-built survey that they've provided us?
I don't have, let me just say.
Yeah,
Okay.
that should be a very recent survey showing the completed
Just be
project.
aware, guys, I just happen to know a little background
Sure.
on this one, and some of the conditions on this bulkhead work were initially accommodated in terms of the revegetation, and apparently they took it out and put things back. I think presently the property's in violation on a bunch of different things.
Oh.
That were conditions of the original,
Okay.
ZBA determination,
So who gave us the notice of completion?
I think we've gotten that either from Mr. Connolly or Mr. Connolly's agent. And this has been kicking around for a while. There were 3 properties here that were all permitted together for their bulkheading. Weinberg, Lenahan, and Connolly. Weinberg cleaned up his application very quickly. Lenahan, we were waiting, and I don't know whether did we finally get an as-built survey of Lenahan? And I have no idea whether we ever got Connolly. But this is a contiguous bulkhead that covers 3 properties.
So would it make sense to have the agent come in and give us an
It
update?
certainly probably would. Brian Frank grabbed me on this the other day and advised me of the violations.
Okay.
So,
This is not an as-built.
And who is the agent?
Dune East Planning?
Due East?
Dune, oh, Due East.
Due East.
Never heard of them.
Can we
That
reach
was
out to
done
them?
like 5 years ago.
Yeah, this bulkhead was
Okay.
done literally ages ago.
What, by Costello or something?
Yes.
But it has a new-
Or actually, no, it was done by Chesterfield.
Okay. I mean, there really is no agent. The owner just
So what's in question?
Let's put it this way.
Well,
The
vegetation.
bulkhead being
Due East has
completed
reached out.
predates me being on this board.
Right. So can we reach out to Due East and invite them to the next meeting?
Yeah, sure. Great.
Great, thank you.
I don't know what it was on there.
So the violations are all with landscaping and
They're all related. Right now, they're related to the ZBA conditions.
Okay, Acrobatic Harbor, meeting field trip, mosquito survey. Would any of the attendees like to report in?
Well, I have maps from Dr. Nicole Mayer. I asked for these to be sent. These are the sightings of where the mosquito nestings are located, and Acrobatic Harbor map. John and Bill and I were present at the Nature Conservancy, where Kevin McDonald, Nicole Mayer, Bridget Fleming, and I, and who am I forgetting? We were all present. We talked about Tom from Vector, yes.
he's the head of vector control.
Okay.
And we discussed, they are looking for a project coordinator who will handle the program. Well, Bill, I'll let you go, or John, for hiring somebody to oversee the program. They want to start early and get training underway. Hopefully a graduate student in biology. They're looking for those people.
Yeah, and they're looking to assemble like teams of people to do the mosquito sampling. And they're considering making an internship. Last year, we contributed to the salaries. We paid the kids some, so, these things are all open for discussion right now. It's moving forward. They're trying to assemble people. They want the program ready to go when the season starts. The one we did last year was kind of last minute.
Pilot.
Yeah, it was a pilot program.
Susan, are these
So,
yellow dots?
Jake from Natural Resources.
sorry.
Is there,
Phil, finish. Excuse me, please.
So I mean, it's moving forward.
Yeah, my understanding is the Nature Conservancy is going to hire the project coordinator.
And they would like
And they're
us to make a
asking,
commitment.
the town and the trustees to put together the interns or the volunteer group. And I think Jake from Natural Resources was working on that. He had some leads, but we should probably,
I know last
if
year,
we have any leads, we should.
well, there was a big interest from members of the Acrobatic Harbor community about reducing methoprene spraying. I was wondering if maybe the local, community groups might be interested in organizing some volunteers to participate.
I'm in touch with Acrobatic Protection Committee regularly as the liaison, so I have given them all the information from John or Tom? Tom. I asked him, they were asking specific questions about methoprene and why the BTI product is not used instead. So I've reached out to them. I've asked them if they know of some people who are interested who want to take the course and sign up. And I think that there will be some people from the Acrobatic Protection Committee itself, which has grown exponentially since last year when I first came on.
Yeah.
We also talked about high school students, maybe getting community credit if they wanted to. You have to sign up if you're watching and you have a graduate student or a high school student, 7 a.m. on Monday mornings, because the reports have to be in by 12 noon to vector control. But I think that there's going to be a lot more interest this year because people are really very concerned.
Yeah, it's going to be a one-day, the sampling is going to be a one day a week.
Right,
Every
on Monday,
Monday.
for 10 weeks.
Wasn't there an age restriction or something on the testing? You had to be like 18 or older,
So they would have to be graduates of high school
if I'm not mistaken.
at the earliest. But apparently last year, they were getting people from Westchester County to come in, so it was not, right? It was not as successful? Because it's a long way for people to travel.
No, that's great. You got to get local people to
If we
do
could
it.
get people from Southampton College, the Marina.
Where's the training occur?
Did we establish that? Are they going to
No,
train?
it's like a one-hour deal showing how to,
Oh, yeah? Well, I'd love to get trained.
Susan, the yellow markings here, the
No,
yellow
you're
pins,
good.
are they the
You're over
potential
18, right?
treating sites and testing sites? 'Cause
I
see there's
believe
a lot
so,
of-
but on the
Come
larger
in.
map
Morning,
that Dr.
starting at
Mayer
7
had,
o'clock.
Nicole,
Listen, man, I
it
started at
actually
5.
had the...
It's lunchtime,
Go
right?
before
So it was showing us, this
What
is
they
where
meant,
there's a
the
higher
legend.
concentration
come up.
and so forth.
Okay, no, it looks like
These
these
are
We took a-
sampling.
Yeah, but I thought this was
We took a walk out into the salt
results.
marshes.
These are the results, not sorted. Okay.
Yeah, we took a walk out into the salt marshes. I took a lot of pictures. and it was-
Yeah.
No, it's interesting.
yeah.
Very good.
So those pictures are also on the computer.
Does anyone else want to look at the maps? Brachyponic?
Part samples, blood samples,
Calling this a citizen
Everything.
science.
from raccoons to garter snakes to birds.
I think this is just dipping a dipper in the water and looking at the
And,
larvae.
you know,
That's-
listen, I can adjust.
Figured it out.
But the only thing
Count
I
the
have
pins
here
on
is
the
that
top.
April 21st is the deadline
Francis?
for the interns to be
At
in
the
place.
end of the committee.
Are we supposed to, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I just want to mention the education after 3 Mile Harbor. All right, thank you. Excuse me.
Are we supposed to sign up as members of this committee to become team members?
I guess if you want.
If you want to be a team member.
At Monday morning, 7 a.m. I thought that last year was the trustees did that?
I'm still
No.
in bed.
No, Bill did it as
To get it
a
started?
town employee of
we're
the
gonna get it.
nature.
Okay.
Get it
Well, I'm
Natural
going to take the
resources.
training.
There was also some talk about getting the plover stewards
Yes.
to double up as
Yeah,
mosquito
there's-
larvae testers, collectors.
Yeah.
I don't know, that would
Is that
have to
at a
go through
different
natural
time?
res-
Yeah, different time.
I guess it could be a different
We
time.
need 8 to 10 interns, I wrote down from the
Yeah.
notes.
I think that's
Dr.
the most valuable thing you could do, Susan, is to
Is
get
get
some
the
people
interns?
from the Acrobatic community to participate.
Well, I put it out there already. We'll
And
see.
leadership by example probably is a great way.
Yes, thank you. 7 a.m.
Right. Keep stressing the downside.
Get to see all those beautiful mornings.
Sounds good.
All right.
Great time to be on the water.
Next.
Okay, who's Agriculture Committee?
That's myself, John, and Susan.
Okay, there's 3 resolutions that need to be passed.
Right.
Also, before we start, we received a copy of the Townfish Shellfish Hatchery Annual Report. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet,
Okay.
but,
Great, maybe we can invite Barley to come in
yeah,
and
to
go
give a
over it with us.
presentation.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, maybe the next
Okay.
couple of meetings. John was very involved with crafting the resolutions, and I know he conferred with Chris a little bit. John, do you want to maybe introduce this topic to us and give us an update as to where we are?
Basically, you know, Barley came in and asked for a third site, a third garden to be put in Acrobatic. And then there's the site in garden in Hog Creek that he wanted to relocate a little bit farther from the clothesline, the line that demarcates close to shellfishing. And then there's the existing 3 Mile Harbor site. I reviewed all I got the old resolutions to craft the new resolutions from, and I noticed that there was no time frame put on these oyster gardens, and I thought it would be, I didn't think it would be good practice for the trustees to sort of authorize something with no end date in it. So we included language in the resolutions that would create these gardens for a period of no longer than 5 years. We didn't want to make it, you know, have to come back every year necessarily, but Chris drafted that language, and if something happens within the 5 years, we can always close it out. But, and they all would be set to the same time frame. So if the gardens continue to be successful and they want to continue 5 years from now, they can come back and get a new set of resolutions.
The hatchery would advocate for,
The hatchery would sort of be
or another party if
the
that was the
administrator
case.
of these gardens as the administrator.
Right. Now, do we have to public notice these in the Star, and,
Yes, there's language in there, and I believe we authorized them tonight. They could go into the Star next issue of the Star, next week, not this week.
a week from Thursday.
A week from Thursday, and then after that, I guess they have to be posted, languages in the resolutions,
Right.
and then they'd be in effect. So do these have to be read?
Well, are all three the same?
No.
Well, they're not exactly the same, but there's a lot of very similar language.
Right. Well, they should be read probably into the record.
And they should be read.
All right, I'll start off.
Okay, we have 3 members of the Aquaculture Committee, so maybe we can each do one to make it a little more palatable.
I'm
Is that mine?
I am suggesting that you pass one at a time.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I have the read.
Yes, thank you, Lori.
I have relocated.
Well, you're going to read that.
Should they read it then?
Oh,
That's your copy
okay,
to
I
read.
have, all right.
John, I'm sorry, did you say how many people are participating in this?
3 copies.
I think it's, in Hog Creek and Acrobatic, it's up to 20 people each,
Okay,
and in 3 Mile Harbor, it's 40 people.
okay.
That, 3 Mile Harbor was expanded last year from 20 to 40.
Okay.
Question for you. Are we going to have this as well for Acrobatic Harbor, since that's the 3rd new site?
Yeah.
Oh, you have it, I'm sorry.
We're each going to read one, too.
No,
Can I ask one last question? Can a boat hit a buoy or something? I mean, is there a flotation for,
Well, the buoy, the gear is visible, it's floating.
right,
And I believe it's marked off on the outside with, marker buoys.
okay.
Like a swim.
And they're in
kinda-
fairly
They're pretty tight. to the
remote
shoreline.
locations, not necessarily boating. The 3 Mile Harbor location is just south of the boat shop at Gann Road, where the Harbor Master's building is, in that little notch. There's really no boating.
Was that Babe Lane, I think?
Babe's
Off of
Lane.
Babe's Lane, yeah, okay.
Correct.
And then in Acrobatic, it'll be off Gerard Drive. There's a property sort of down fairly close to the end, on the harbor side, that had an old boat basin kind of carved into the marsh.
286 Gerard Drive, right?
So it's in there. That's fairly shallow. There's not really a lot of, any boats that go in there would be attached to the houses that are adjacent to the water.
I got you.
And anybody going up and down the harbor would be sort of out in the middle of the harbor.
Has the committee received any complaints from the public in reference to, where it's impeding on
Conflict of
their
views kind of thing?
public access of the waterways, or?
I don't believe, not that-
We haven't received any formal.
Orly's been pretty careful about trying to locate these things out of.
I had one member of the 3 Mile Harbor community approached me that some of the gardening crates were a little tight off Babe's Lane, and that if there could at least be a little channel for like kayak launching and stuff off of Babe's Lane beach. That was the only comment I got.
There was what was it, the dinghy access or something over there by Gann Road? There was some
There's no real
discussion.
dinghy dock there.
There was another
I know
board was
there's always-
considering a dinghy dock.
Yeah, that's been a long term, long talk about a dinghy
Right.
dock, but there never really was ever one established.
I think the head of the harbor is really a better choice. We have access to the sidewalk and things like that for people who are mooring. 3 Mile's so dangerous. You come in at Gann Road, if you don't get a cab, you really can't get anywhere. So I think
Well, head of the harbor's closed waters, though.
when you say closed waters, what do you
Talking
mean?
about head of the harbor and 3 Mile Harbor.
dinghy dock.
That
For a
over-
dinghy dock,
Oh, for a dinghy dock.
yeah.
All right. You want to move ahead, John?
Read this resolution, public notice on proposed use of trustee bottomlands in Acrobatic Creek for an oyster garden for individual private use. Following resolution was offered and adopted by blank vote of the town trustees. Whereas the trustees, the freeholders of commonality of the town of East Hampton, are owners and fee title of the bottomland of Acrobatic Creek. Whereas in addition to the trustees' inherent powers as owners of said bottomland, Section 213-18 of the East Hampton Town Code specifically authorizes the trustees to vary and regulate the limitations on the taking of shellfish in town waters or bottomlands over which the trustees have jurisdiction, including Acrobatic Creek. Whereas this activity elsewhere in town waters has been successful at producing marketable oysters as well as oysters that have been made available for seeding into public grounds, thereby creating public benefit. Whereas there is in recent years an increased demand for this activity, therefore warranting the designation of additional areas for this activity, including an area within Acrobatic Creek. Whereas the trustees wish to designate a new area of bottomland within Acrobatic Creek for the nurturing and harvesting of oysters by private individuals within assigned plots or areas under the supervision of the town aquaculture department. Whereas the trustees believe this practice should continue at said location for years to come, and in the interest of trustee and public efficiency, a time period for this resolution not to exceed 5 years should be established. Now therefore be it resolved that public notice shall be given by publication on March 22nd, I believe, 2018, in the East Hampton Star, trustees' official newspaper of record, that the trustees intend to designate a new area of bottomland within Acrobatic Creek, which will be designated as an oyster garden to be used for the nurturing and harvesting of oysters by private individuals to whom plots or areas of bottomland will be exclusively assigned. Be it further resolved that the so-called Acrobatic Creek Oyster Garden is proposed to encompass an area of bottomland approximately 30 feet by 70 feet in extent, the center of which will be situated at a latitude of approximately 41 degrees, 1 minute, 47.8 seconds north by 72 degrees, 8 minutes, 19.47 degrees, seconds west. Be it further resolved that the proposed Acrobatic Creek Oyster Garden is intended to be divided into as many as 20 plots, each of which plots is to be exclusively leased or otherwise assigned to one or more individuals working in concert. Be it further resolved that pursuant to Section 213-18 of the East Hampton Town Code, as well as the trustees' inherent powers as owners of the bottomland in question, the area of the proposed oyster garden will be closed to the general public. The purposes of taking of shellfish in accordance with this resolution will be appropriately delineated and posted to so indicate. Be it further resolved that the cooperation and involvement of the town aquaculture department is requested in delineating, posting, and managing the said Acrobatic Creek Oyster Garden. Be it further resolved that a resolution establishing the aforementioned Acrobatic Creek Oyster Garden shall take effect after the adoption by the town trustees and following publication of the adopted resolution in the newspaper of record, filing of said resolution with the town clerk, and posting of said resolution on the official notice board in East Hampton Town Hall, whichever shall last occur. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall remain in effect for 5 years from the date of adoption, without any further action required on behalf of the trustees during this term. Trustees may, but are not permitted, to revisit this resolution prior to the completion of the 5-year term to address any unanticipated changes in circumstances.
Joe, when you said not permitted, did you mean not required?
It reads not required.
Not required, I think.
Where's that?
The trustees may, but are not required to revisit. The last sentence you read.
Yeah.
Trustees may, but are not required to.
You said not permitted.
Oh,
I
sorry.
think that's what
Okay.
it means.
All right, do I have a
Thank you.
second?
Should I read it again?
I'll second it.
No.
All in favor?
Aye. Susan, would you like to go
So
next?
go ahead.
Sure, ladies first.
Resolution, public notice on proposed use of the trustee bottomlands at Hog Creek for a relocated oyster garden for individual private use. The following resolution was offered and adopted by blank vote of the town trustees. Whereas the trustees of the freeholders and commonality of the town of East Hampton are the owners and fee title of the bottomland of Hog Creek, and whereas in addition to the trustees' inherent powers as owners of said bottomland, 213-18 of the East Hampton Town Code specifically authorizes the trustees to vary and regulate the limitations on the taking of shellfish in town waters or bottomlands over which the trustees have jurisdiction, including Hog Creek, and whereas the trustees have heretofore dedicated an area of bottomland within Hog Creek for the nurturing and harvesting of oysters by private individuals within assigned plots or areas under the supervision of the town aquaculture department, and whereas this activity has been successful at producing marketable oysters as well as oysters that have been made available for seeding to public grounds, thereby creating public benefit, and whereas the trustees and town aquaculture department wish to relocate the area of bottomland within Hog Creek, which is devoted to this oyster garden activity, in order to move it further from the area of Hog Creek closed to shellfishing, and whereas the trustees and town aquaculture department have identified a suitable area for the oyster gardening at approximately 41 degrees 245.57 north by 72 degrees 958.47 west, and whereas the trustees believe this practice should continue at said location for years to come, and in the interests of trustee and public efficiency, a time period for this resolution not to exceed 5 years should be established. Now, therefore, be it resolved that public notice shall be given by publication on March 22nd, 2018, in the East Hampton Star, the trustees' official newspaper of record, that the trustees intend to relocate the area of bottomlands within Hog Creek, which will be designated as an oyster garden to be used for the nurturing and harvesting of oysters by private individuals to whom plots or areas of bottomland will be exclusively assigned, and be it further resolved that the so-called relocated Hog Creek Oyster Garden is proposed to encompass an area of bottomland approximately 30 by 70 in extent, the center of which will be situated at a latitude of approximately 41 degrees 245.57 north by 72 degrees 958.47 west, and be it further resolved that the proposed relocated Hog Creek Oyster Garden is intended to be divided into as many as 20 plots, each of which plot is to be exclusively assigned to one or more individuals working in consort, and be it further resolved that pursuant to 213-18 of the East Hampton Town Code, as well as trustees' inherent powers as owners of the bottomland in question, the area of the proposed relocated Hog Creek Oyster Garden will be closed to the general public for purposes of the taking of shellfish in accordance with this resolution, and will be appropriately delineated and posted to so indicate, and be it further resolved that the cooperation and involvement of the town aquaculture department is requested in delineating, posting, and managing the said relocated Hog Creek Oyster Garden, and be it further resolved that the abandoned Hog Creek Oyster Garden, an approximately 30 by 70 plot centered at 41 degrees 243.32 north by 72 degrees 956.24 west, will be reopened for the taking of shellfish by the general public, and be it further resolved that a resolution establishing the aforementioned relocated Hog Creek Oyster Garden and reopening of the area of the abandoned Hog Creek Oyster Garden to the taking of shellfish by the general public shall take effect after adoption by the town trustees and following publication of the adopted resolution in the newspaper of record, filing of said resolution with the town clerk, and posting of said resolution on the official notice board in East Hampton Town Hall, whichever shall last occur. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall effectively revoke any previous resolutions regarding this matter and shall remain in effect for 5 years from the date of adoption without any further action required on behalf of the trustees during this time frame. The trustees, and this will be corrected, right, may but are not required to revisit this resolution prior to the completion of the 5-year term to address any unanticipated changes in circumstances dated March blank 2016 by order of the trustees of the freeholders and commonalty of the town of East Hampton. Francis J. Bach, Clerk of the Trustees.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution, public notice on proposed use of trustee bottomlands at 3 Mile Harbor for an enlarged oyster garden for individual private use. The following resolution was offered and adopted by vote of the town trustees. Whereas the trustees of the freeholders and commonalty of the town of East Hampton are the owners in fee title of the bottomland of 3 Mile Harbor, and whereas in addition to the trustees' inherent powers as owners of said bottomland, Section 213-18 of the East Hampton Town Code specifically authorizes the trustees to restrict or limit the taking of shellfish in town waters or bottomlands over which the trustees have jurisdiction, including 3 Mile Harbor, and whereas the trustees have heretofore dedicated an area of bottomland within 3 Mile Harbor for the nurturing and harvesting of oysters by private individuals within leased or assigned plots or areas under the supervision of the town aquaculture department, whereas this activity has been successful at producing marketable oysters, as well as oysters that have been made available for seeding to public grounds, thereby creating public benefit, and whereas an increased demand warrants an enlargement of the area so allotted, and whereas the trustees therefore wish to enlarge the area of bottomland within 3 Mile Harbor, which is devoted to this oyster gardening activity. Whereas the trustees believe this practice should continue at said location for years to come, and in the interest of trustee and public efficiency, a time period for this resolution not to exceed 5 years should be established. Now, therefore, be it resolved that public notice shall be given by publication on March 22nd, 2018, in the East Hampton Star, the trustees' official newspaper of record, that the trustees intend to enlarge the area of bottomlands within 3 Mile Harbor, which will be designated as an oyster garden, to be used for the nurturing and harvesting of oysters by private individuals to whom plots or areas of bottomland will be exclusively leased or otherwise assigned. And be it further resolved that the so-called 3 Mile Harbor Oyster Garden is proposed to be enlarged to encompass an area of bottomland approximately 60 feet by 70 feet in extent, the center of which will be situated at a latitude of approximately 41 degrees 1 minute, 36.79 seconds north, and a longitude of approximately 72 degrees 10 minutes, 50.01 seconds west. And be it further resolved that the proposed enlarged 3 Mile Harbor Oyster Garden is intended to be divided into as many as 40 plots, each of which plot is to be exclusively leased or otherwise assigned to one or more individuals working in concert. And be it further resolved that pursuant to Section 213-18 of the East Hampton Town Code, as well as the trustees' inherent powers as owners of the bottomland in question, the area of the proposed oyster garden will be closed to the general public for the purposes of taking shellfish in accordance with this resolution, and will be appropriately delineated and posted to so indicate. And be it further resolved that the cooperation and involvement of the town aquaculture department is requested in delineating, posting, and managing the 3 Mile Harbor Oyster Garden. And be it further resolved that a resolution establishing the aforementioned enlarged 3 Mile Harbor Oyster Garden shall take effect after adoption by the town trustees and following publication of the adopted resolution in the newspaper of record. Filing of said resolution with the town clerk and posting of said resolution on the official notice board in East Hampton Town Hall, whichever shall occur last. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall effectively revoke any previous resolutions regarding this matter and shall remain in effect for 5 years from the date of adoption, without any further action required on behalf of the trustees during this term. The trustees may, but are not required to, revisit this resolution prior to the completion of the 5-year term to address any unanticipated changes in circumstances. By order of the town trustees of the freeholders and commonalty of the town of East Hampton, Francis J. Block, clerk of the trustees.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
We didn't have the Acrobatic paper, that's what I was looking for. That's what I was-
All right. Move on to Georgica Ponds.
Do you want to talk about just
The oyster transplant?
oyster transfer?
Oh,
Oyster transfer.
oyster transfer, oh, yes.
So we, the Aquaculture Committee had discussed possibility of doing an oyster transplant, taking oysters from Oyster Pond in Montauk and distributing them into seasonally closed areas in East Hampton town waters. This is something that was done a few years in the early mid-'90s, until the oyster population gave out. and it really hasn't been evaluated since then, as far as I know. So the first step is to do a population survey. So I've submitted an application to the DEC, Shell Fisheries Division, for doing a shellfish population survey in Oyster Pond. I spoke to Tom Dess, the superintendent of the state park, about whatever we needed there to get into the park and do it. I believe there's a park use permit. He's very cooperative. He's going to get me the information. I haven't heard back from the DEC. Well, I haven't got an answer from the DEC. I've talked to them, and I've heard back from them, and they sent me an application for the actual transfer, but the first step would be to get in there and see if there's anything worth transplanting. So as soon as we get these permits in place, we'll go into Oyster Pond with barley and either dive or on them and take a look, or tong for them, or drag a scallop dredge to see what's down there, what condition it's in. Then we can determine about how much is there. The next step would be to get some crews of baymen together who might be interested in harvesting the shellfish, and then they'd be transferred over to an area in some other harbor, which I guess we can discuss when the time is right.
Certified waters.
Uncertified, seasonally certified.
Seasonal, you put them in,
They're coming out of uncertified waters, so they have to go into uncertified waters.
for at least 30 days. and
But
they
as long
clean
as
it
they
up.
go into seasonally closed waters, those waters are closed for the season, uncertified for the season, then it'd be open to harvest the following winter.
In the winter.
So
Thank you.
typically, it's been like the bottom of the lake, if it was in the lake, or
You put them in
lower
Acrobatic
end of
Harbor a
3
couple
Mile Harbor,
times. Yeah.
Acrobatic
Did they do
Harbor.
well?
Northwest
I mean,
has
the
some
guys
seasonal
went
areas.
and got 'em.
Right, northwest.
They're not
do
the
they-
prettiest
Did you
oysters.
mention Georgia
Pardon me?
They're
Pond?
not the
Didn't last that
prettiest
long, you know,
oysters.
they-
They're not what?
The prettiest
We supplemented the
prettiest,
stock. There was still
They get
some
prettier as they,
Acrobatic a
when they
couple
get
years
into
ago.
town water.
They
Closer.
put a bunch behind rocks and stuff.
You mentioned Georgia Pond, right, as well?
Well,
To get the
we
same
might,
payment,
yeah,
putting
another
them out.
one of the projects that
later.
we've been talking about in the Aquaculture Committee is doing some sort of test plots for, see how oysters survive in Oyster Pond. There's a couple of problems with Oyster Pond. This has been done in the past, and it hasn't been very good survival. It goes too fresh, too fast, generally, and the blue claw crabs generally work on the oysters, especially the small oysters. So I thought maybe we could put some of these larger oyster pond oysters into Georgia and see how they do, just as a beginning of this sort of test to see how oysters will survive in the pond. So if oysters do survive, it's something that I know the Georgia people and Chris Gobler have sort of asked
Right.
about as a possible method of
Helping to
adding to the
clean.
cleansing
Yeah,
process.
Oyster Pond has always been pretty fresh water,
Yeah.
so they might,
You got that, like, bar that goes down halfway down the pond,
Yeah.
you know, one side of it is so fresh that, you know, you have peepers, and actually it had one of the only, I think, only resident leopard frog populations in there. But then on the other side of the bar is brackish, and you have oysters.
Right. And down by the ocean might be a little bit more
Well, down by the
brackish.
bay.
North,
Yeah.
North Bar.
yeah. We get a lot of oysters, I mean, when we did it 2 or 3 times. It was always,
Yeah,
you
it
know,
was
good
very
experience.
successful, and I think East Hampton did it 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Then, shouldn't say this, Southampton got,
a wind of it, yeah.
they came in as well. And once East Hampton and Southampton did it in the same year, it kind of depleted the population.
But we took out hundreds of bags of oysters. It was,
I think, yeah, 300 or 400 bushels at a time came out.
yeah. So we
Thanks,
might as
John.
well. And that's, I mean, that's close to shellfishing out there. So it's actually making use of a neglected resource.
Right.
Maps?
All right, anything else on that?
No, that's it.
All right. Georgica, Rivkin, Phragmite Control at 3 Eel Cove.
I haven't done anything with this yet. I've been trying to get a hold of Bruce. Hopefully I'll see him shortly,
Okay,
because they're all Bruce Horwood.
all 3 of these?
Yep,
We're tabling those till next meeting?
yes.
Okay. Harbor Management.
Yep. One of the main things is we recently received the environmental and permitting assessment document for the Deepwater Wind South Fork Wind Farm and the South Fork export cable. And it's the first time I've heard the landing cable referred to as the South Fork export cable. So it's, I believe, an 82-page document, and we received it late on Friday.
March 9th.
Friday evening.
Friday evening, so I think everyone's just starting to review the document, and we will publish it on the website this week, and we will be looking at it. So there's really nothing to report on the document itself, other than we have received it. We will make it available to the public. There are hard copies that will be in the office, and there will be a copy to download off of the website. So that's really the latest development on the Deepwater project. I think we'll have a lot more to talk about at the next meeting when everyone's had a chance to digest this. And that's all on Deepwater. Jim, is there anything on horseshoe crabs?
Well, the horseshoe crab thing, we're having difficulty arriving at a day and a time that Matt can be available. Our Wednesday nights don't really work for him because his wife works and he's got some young kids. So maybe for the month of April, we could do maybe I'm going to ask him what is a time that he could be available.
Okay.
And see if we can't just work it around that way.
Yeah, it'd be great to hit it the first week in April.
Yeah, because I'm
we're
afraid
due
to
to get
push
this
it
going.
past that, yeah.
Only 30 days to organize for the May moon.
All right,
It's going to come up quick on us.
yeah.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Can I go back to Deepwater for a
No.
second?
Yes.
I took a look at this report. I was interested in the effects of EMFs. Kind of asked them for the information they provided here. And, as you said, there's a lot of information to digest in this thing. We have certain capabilities ourselves. Town board members have certain capabilities themselves, but I wonder if the board should sort of kick around the idea of whether or not we want to, at this point, now that we've got sort of some really, meaty environmental assessments, we want to kick around the idea of making a request to the town board for an environmental review of this Deepwater, different aspects of the Deepwater project. They have professional departments that do this kind of thing. There have been interest by some citizens groups and town board members as well of doing environmental reviews, and I thought maybe we should discuss it and come to some conclusion maybe not tonight necessarily, but at least begin the discussion of whether we want to request an environmental review by the town board.
I think a local environmental review would be a very helpful perspective on the project and ensure that a more thorough look is given to the project. And as you pointed out, we do have a planning department, a natural resources department that are better equipped to assess some of these parameters of the project. And it is possible that, if some form of an easement or a lease is granted, that there may not be the same level of review done by a non-local agency. So there is a risk to not having the local review done, and I think we need to be aware of that.
I would like to contribute to this conversation as well, because I completely agree with you, and I agree with you, and I think that all of us would like to make sure that we have done everything that we possibly can as a board to ensure that we follow procedure, that our town codes and planning and are handled the same way for Deepwater Wind as any other applicant who comes before the town board. So I think it would be appropriate for the town board to become more involved, support the trustees together, and we have dialogue and communication with each other about this, because it's a 25-year lease that we're looking at, if not longer, and I would like to see all avenues explored. With natural resources special permit, most people would have to, applicants go through that process, and I think it's a big undertaking that we are looking at. We should look at every avenue possible and have a thorough examination of what we would subject any applicant to. And as a board, as trustees who are responsible for our waterways and our harbors and beaches, I ran as trustee, for a trustee position to preserve and protect, and that's, I think, that's the core foundation of doing a natural resources permit or SECRA application and investigation, if you will.
John, where are you looking to take this discussion? Are you looking to take this in the form of a motion that we send sort of a document to the town board requesting a more formal review?
I think that's the question we want to ask ourselves, whether or not we want to do that.
Because I agree. I agree. I think we'd be remiss in not putting this through the same sort of standard of review that any other applicant would have to abide by.
And the way I see it is, this issue of Article 7 precluding local review, I'm not sure how true that is necessarily. I mean, I'm sure they have their procedures, but I think, whether this goes to the point of granting permits or not granting permits, to me, that's less important than getting the local environmental review in place. And it could even be useful to the town and the trustees, if they're going to be interveners in the Article 7 process, to have information that the town has put together to bring to that process. So I think there's a lot of positives about setting the course of the town on the course of reviewing this project from an environmental perspective, regardless of the technicalities of who and who can't give what permits.
I don't think they're exempt from, I don't think that they should be exempt from the procedures that we ask of every applicant. And whether or not it works out, at least we have done something to move forward with the town. I really would like the town board to be more involved in this. I think Harbor Management has done a fantastic job of bringing the public to these forums with Deepwater Wind. Rick, you've done a stupendous job. But it really should be a concern.
Jim too, and John.
And Jim and John. Everyone here, I think we're all on board that we've given as much information to the public as possible, given what we get from Deepwater Wind. But the town board, we work together. We are all a community, and it's, in my opinion, our town needs to stand up and demand that we have these
Susan,
reviews.
could we just hear maybe from some of the other board members what their feelings are on it? Susan, do you have any feelings on this?
I agree. I think, listening to the public speakers that come up here, when we have these talks about Deepwater Wind, they're insisting that we engage the town board and insist that these studies and these environmental reviews are done before we make a decision on allowing an easement or permitting Deepwater Wind. And I don't think it's a bad idea at all. I think we would be doing the public a disservice if we did not.
The Wainscott community has sent another letter to the town board reiterating their interest in seeing this take place too. And they're the community that's going to be the most impacted as the cable's landing.
Can I put a motion out that we basically send a letter to the town board requesting them to engage natural resources in a review of this project.
Yeah, I would second that motion.
We could add planning to that, I would think.
Okay.
Just so you get the perspective of the town, I met with the town attorney today and the head of planning, and it's too early for them to make a decision, they told me, with regards to what we're talking about, any kind of environmental impact.
A decision whether to review it?
Yeah, that's correct. They said that it's very complicated, and if you look, and I know Francis is going to get into this at a later date, but I think it's important to mention here that on Deep Well's package that they gave us, they have a list of preempted by PSL, which is the what is it again? Public service law. For example, when they open the road, East Hampton Highway Department, they appear to be exempt from, preempted by the PSL. Zoning Board of Appeals, Building Department, zoning, all preempted. Building Department, Planning Board, Architectural Review. I mean, they don't leave anything out.
Zoning Board of Appeals.
It doesn't necessarily mean that it can't happen.
The trustees aren't listed in this.
They have to
Trustees are
agree
not mentioned in this list of
necessary.
necessary permits or necessary.
You know,
It's
I
tricky.
have a significant lack of understanding of this Article 7 process. The way I read it, once Deepwater applies for their certification to construct their plant, and I think that includes...
And land their cable.
And the cable. At that point, the local municipality would be precluded from forcing a permit on them, because then they've entered the Article 7 process. But as far as I know, they haven't applied yet, so I don't...
I think they need to have a complete route to the substation in order to do so.
If you look
I
at,
think my reading of the Article 7, I may be totally wrong, because I don't know how to read these laws
No,
very well.
I think Rick is correct. And I
That
think
they-
that's what's...
Part of it.
That's what's the reason that they're in the full court press right now
We were told,
to secure that.
some of these meetings, I've heard Clint say that Deepwater Wind cannot go forward until the town grants them.
My
an
reading of
easement or
Article
they-
That makes,
7
can I tell you
says
what,
that
that makes it
they
even more
need-
important for the town to truly look at this, look at it carefully, look at it somewhat as thoroughly as they can, and weigh in.
they're being a little weird about it. The town. I'm a little suspect, because they're so anal about the guy that wants to put a shed 10 feet from his property line, that we've got this blimp over us, and they're like, I don't know, man, we're just going to wait and see. It just doesn't sit right with me.
I think, I agree.
It just doesn't sit right.
I just
Think your
don't,
girlfriend
this
is
whole
still in
thing
the
just
bathroom
tastes
on
funny
this?
to me. I just want to go on record as being adamantly against this whole Deepwater Wind. I don't think, I haven't kept that secret from anybody, but as much as I would hope that an environmental study would be done in anything that is going to, by chance, harm our environment, I would be much more happier if this board of if the trustees would just deny these people the easement, come right out of the box and just say it, and let's get on with business. It just all reeks of bad business to me. And as a trustee member, I don't particularly like being involved in bad business. So I kind of like, I just don't like what's going on. I don't like it from any angle. And I hate having to sit here and talk about how we'll do a benefits package and we'll offer that out to them and do all this stuff, when quite frankly, I wouldn't do business with these people buying candy. I don't like them. I don't like the idea of industrializing our oceans. I don't like what it's doing to the fishermen. I don't like what it does to the trustee board, and I don't like what's going on with in the town of this all hush-hush secretly, you know, not stepping up. I don't like the whole thing. I just want to go on record thinking I think it stinks. We got to get rid of these deep water wind people. Let them go try to mess with the state and bring it down through state. Let's get on with business.
I think regardless of how we feel individually about deep water and where we would come down on voting on it, I think we all recognize that it probably will come ashore somewhere.
I don't agree. Yeah, maybe somewhere.
And that's where I think the environmental reviews are important, because if we can push an environmental review, a local environmental review, even if it comes ashore in Napeague, you know, it's the same beach, it's the same.
Well, I'm
ocean,
still not giving in that it is going to come ashore. I'd still like to see it stopped. Period. Period.
Did we have a vote, or we're going to vote on?
Yeah, I vote we stop it.
We have a motion on the table.
All in favor?
Seconded.
We need to follow procedure.
Okay, anybody else have anything to add to this?
I mean, requesting an NRSP, requesting, you know, what you wanted to vote on before, that the town do an environmental study, that's pretty, you know, there's no harm in that, is there?
That's the motion. that's
Jim
on the
offered
floor.
the resolutions, didn't he?
I went for the motion.
Jim put a
You
motion.
offered a motion,
I
you
will second
seconded
the
it,
motion.
all in favor?
Could you repeat that, what you said?
We're going to
Jim?
request from the town board that
You're
they
asking me
do.
to remember what I said 10 minutes ago?
We're going to,
Playback the tape.
the
Playback
board
the
would
tape.
like the town board to do an environmental review of the project.
Okay.
We'd like them to study this as much as we have,
Yeah.
okay?
And we all have the same common goal, which is to preserve our fisheries, to preserve our communities, our waterways. I mean, I think procedure is very important. Nobody's exempt.
Well,
Nobody, not even you.
that, yes, me, yes, them, we'll see. Because it sounds like Big Brother to me.
Okay. Napeague Lazy Point, ZBA application of Soraka, 106 Shore Drive,
Yeah, it's
east of...
coming up on the 27th, or no, it's 27th of this month. Nothing's changed on this since the last time this came up. I did meet with Brian Frank about it. You have an existing property, had an existing seawall, got damaged or deteriorated, one or the other. The homeowner did some repairs, did some improvements on this seawall. The big issue with the town is there's some other activities. There was some decking work, some work done on the building that was probably expansion in terms of decking. And one of the conditions that they were looking for to dispose of this with the owner was to rectify that stuff. On the trustees' end, the bulkhead does not appear to have gone seaward any more than it was. Like I said, it was pre-existing. It was improved or repaired without a permit. But other than that, this is something that's been there, probably predates the 1975 cutoff. So, you know, our jurisdiction, guys, ends at the bulkhead.
Yeah. There's not much wave action there. It's kind of a
There's not much
of
wave
seawalls.
action, but you know what it is. You've got all these properties that are all pretty low-lying. I mean, I've been down there a couple times when that area is flooded. So frankly, my opinion is we really don't have much interest here. I don't think there's anything to prove.
I mean, should there be a permit submitted for the repairs that have been made on it? Or
It almost
Perhaps that might be a reasonable
Not unlike the
request.
other-
Yes.
looks like they slapped a coat of cement on what was there and...
Because then we would then have a record, you
Yeah.
know,
That's
going
okay.
forward.
No,
Where we
that's
have,
probably reasonable.
prior to this, we had
Not an
absolutely
onerous
nothing.
request,
I'm
and
okay with that.
we can baseline it and have a record,
Yeah.
as Susan says.
Do we want to wait
idea.
to see what the results of the ZBA? We could actually attend the ZBA hearing and request
Yeah.
that they apply and receive a trustee permit.
I think it'd be a good idea to
Yep.
attend and
All right,
speak up.
Sounds good.
me and Brian are going to go,
Dates?
It's cool.
as soon as his girlfriend comes out of the bathroom.
Hey, don't use my materials, man. I tell you that all the time. Use your own stuff.
All right. Records and internet.
Yes. We had distributed a procedural guideline for email protocol and web content delivery, and it's also been forwarded to trustee council for review. And if Chris, if you have anything to add on the procedures?
It was a really nice job you did there, Rick.
Okay.
And we talked about possibly turning this into a resolution to be adopted, and then, Francis kind of chimed in as well, and I think we all sort of determined that it doesn't need to be a resolution, but it is something to continue to consider and kind of incorporate into your daily activities. So
Okay.
at this time, we're not going to put it into resolution format, but definitely something to everybody to keep in their file for each and every trustee, and to remember to use it for their emails and correspondence.
So I'd like to maybe then make a motion that this board use that document as a procedural guideline for email protocol, and we will follow that for web content delivery purposes.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
A copy at the desk in the office,
Yep.
by our computer?
Yep,
that
we'll
we
make
all
sure.
use?
Yep.
Yeah, the reason I don't think this should be in resolution form is because I don't believe we can really bind the hands of future boards to
Right.
our protocol,
Yep, that's fair.
so.
Is that something that should be brought up maybe in the organizational meeting of every year?
Yeah, we
or
are looking to
term or whatever?
develop more procedures that can be handed down to future boards, regarding email, meetings, committee work. So I think, John, that's a good point, and I think we'll see more of an evolution of that going forward this year. And then the other thing was we did receive the resume from Mr. Borner. It looks like he's very well qualified. And I think this is probably a good lead-in to some discussion that we want to have on the Roads Committee, and an opportunity to look at, perhaps a future roadmap for some issues that we've identified with certain roadways, trustee roads, and, the need, I think, for us to work towards engaging someone like Mr. Borner in the future. And, from my perspective, I think that the site visits are valuable that we've been doing. I know, Della, and you guys want to talk a little bit about some of the ones you did, but I just wanted to share a little overview as a background, that I still think we have a little bit of internal homework to do to electronically catalog our holdings. I think Rick Whalen did a great job. We have some hard copy and paper format, but we need to bring it into the 21st century, get it cataloged electronically. And the site visits, I think, provide an opportunity for the field observation notes and to, in effect, prioritize which properties may be in need as a harder look or a more well-defined look, like in the form of a survey. And that's part of our documentation for engagement with someone. A proper electronic catalog, proper prioritization of issues, a request for proposal, and maybe the establishment of some kind of an annual budget that says, here's how we can proceed, and then put that package together as a project management document and give it to a Steve and whoever else, I don't even know who has these kind of credentials, but whoever else is in this business, and see, what we would be looking at for some kind of an engagement like that, and start to move the ball forward. So that's kind of my general take of, doing this a little bit in the last term, and having I think a really proactive team right now that's into, looking at this harder. And, welcome to open it up for any other further discussion. And then I know you did some field visits that you'd like to talk about as well, so.
Well, as far as this goes, I would like to see the committee put together a proposed project Start with something that you want to go with, and then we can put it out there, and
That would be the
and then
RFP,
build
I think.
upon it after.
Is this built like he researches the history and
Well, there's a number of issues here. That's why it gets complicated,
You know,
because we have some pressing things now as well as the bigger project.
is it
Yeah,
like a
well,
title
that's it.
search?
There are things that I think Steve would be much more efficient in helping us with, whereas there's a lot more little stuff that I think maybe someone with not as much experience would be just as fine. Not trying to throw Steve out of it. I think there's projects that he would be perfect for. One comes to mind really quickly. But then there's some little ones, some of the things that we've looked at over the past few days,
that we don't
where maybe a local
necessarily
survey
need.
guy might be able to help us with an answer to that. But again, there's work we can do before it even gets to that point.
Yeah, the
Some that I didn't
organizational work.
really realize until we spoke, and it gave me more of a broader
Perspective.
view of what we can still do before we get to that.
Okay, could you give some examples?
Sure.
Sure. That's-
Here's a great example. Montauk Highway, Old Montauk Highway. We got there, we see a road very clearly as it's marked on the old trustee map, so we found the trustee road. It's immediately blocked with a huge pile of dirt, okay? We can go beyond it.
Excuse me.
We go, and it turns into a guy's driveway.
This is down going,
Off of Cranberry.
Yes.
Off of
Near
Cranberry.
Cross Highway.
Cranberry. You go up the guy's driveway, and that's the end of our road, because now he's elevated to where we'd have to jump 15 feet back down to our road. He is built right on the edge of our property, we think.
We think.
He's got trees planted where we believe is trustee property.
okay.
We can't by eye.
Okay, but hang on. Yes, in some ways you can.
Yes, you
Bill.
can. You're right.
Okay,
You're right.
Because you know what
Right.
you can do is go into natural resources. They've got most of these surveys, because it's a fairly recent house. They've got an as-built. They can lay that over.
You're right.
An aerial, and it'll at least give you, it'll at least sort of satisfy the suspicion. Now, to validate that, we probably are going to get into a situation where we're going to have to pay and have surveys done. But I think there's things that we can do.
You're right.
Before we go and engage somebody to prepare surveys, there's a lot of, work, the same kind of work that code enforcement winds up having to do. So, that in itself.
Absolutely,
Well, we
Jimmy.
did-
And we're learning this as we discuss it.
Yeah, we just went and looked at this, Thursday or Friday?
Right.
And then we were both tied up over the weekend. So I planned on going to the town, well, barring the snowstorm tomorrow, but getting into
Records.
town hall and getting that as-built survey. I have, last week, I went in and spoke to Barnaby in the planning department, because I had found a map in the trustee file, which Ron Pirelli had done back in the early 2000s. And it had the trustee roads just like written on there, and they were all numbered. They weren't spelled out, but they were numbered. So I went to him with that, to try and find what the numbers referenced. And he didn't have any report on that. He spoke to Ron. Ron wasn't sure whatever happened to it. I guess it's MIA. But we went through to the tax map numbers, and we kind of figured out what most of them were. But also Barnaby has come and done some overmapping, like you talked about, which he can do for us. If we want to take a certain area, like Old Montauk Highway where we were, he can do like 3 different types of overmapping for us, which might be helpful, which I'll send to you. He
Great.
sent me some samples.
We also,
And,
yeah.
and then we can just take it from there. And
We also get into what we've done quite a few, or at least we've started a couple. And what happens is we'll get into onto a road or property that was apparently a road, or called a road, and it's dense woods. And there are no markers anymore. There's no property stakes, there's nothing. So we get there, and now it's all eye. It's all like, well, how wide
way
is
do we
this?
go?
How wide?
Can I
don't
tell you
know.
when the best time to go and look at something like that is? Tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah.
Right after
With the snow.
Right after a snow, you can read the topography much better, and we have some handheld GPSs, okay? It might be worthwhile to go and walk what you perceive
Oh, I
to
didn't know
be,
we had the
what you
handheld.
perceive to
It's a
be the
really nice
center
one.
line of that,
how to use it.
of that road right away, and talk to Barnaby. He can download your waypoints in and establish
Okay.
that on
That's
paper.
great. Didn't know
And,
that was-
you know, you could find yourself, because unfortunately, on some of these roads, like you get into, you know, I'm not speaking about trustee roads, but in Montauk, there's dirt roads through the woods. And over the years, some of those roads got washed out. Maybe there was a brush fire, maybe there was some event that forced sort of realignment or a shift of the road, and it's amazing how far off from the original road you can get. But you go through after a snow, hopefully a light snow, you can really see that, and it's a great time. You know,
Yeah.
it's before the ticks are out, and
Sure.
Well, the ticks are out
Well, the
already.
ticks are out. We
We've
got-
already been picking ticks off on some.
Let me just add a couple things. We did the Midland Highway, which is on here, and I know, Chris, we had discussed, you sent a letter, we discussed this last time. I don't know how it's all going to end. We'll all find out together. But what I think got lost along the way of whatever the gentleman's going to agree to do, I see he was quite receptive to what we had asked him about moving his fence back on his property. I understand that it's all good and all, but I also want to take this opportunity, and I know it's not our direct responsibility, but when I'm out there looking at roads or doing trustee road business, and I come across a guy that has deer fencing that's not code.
Not compliant.
Okay? Whether it's how much of his property he's surrounding or the size of his fence, I want to report on that, and I want to follow up to make sure that it's been addressed with. Just like, you know, if I found a dead body, I would certainly contact the police. I wouldn't not just say anything.
Well,
So-
we did find that cross in
but
the
you
middle
can
of the
bet-
woods.
Yeah, we found where we think we're on a road, it looks like a huge
Crooked
cross.
highway,
and it's
in the
not
middle
for a
of the
dog.
woods, and there's this
It's-
cross.
But anyway, I think it's important that some of these, or I'm going to take the opportunity, because I'm concerned about the deer fencing as well, but this is another great opportunity, and I think these things should be looked into.
Well, documented.
And Midland's a good case. We're trying to rectify one situation, but really, if he's going to move that fence, he better move it and then downgrade it, because he's over 10 feet, and you know, he's got to do it right by us, and he's got to do what's right by everybody.
That fence is over 10 feet?
Oh, forget about it. It's
Okay, but on-
almost 12,
But on
14 feet.
On that, Del,
Yeah.
that's not the responsibility of the trustees.
It's not.
You're welcome to contact code enforcement, but it's not really our job to do that.
Once again, if I found a dead body out there, I would
Okay.
report it to the police and expect him
Right.
to handle it properly, and I'm going to expect code enforcement to address these fence issues that I will be
Hand it off.
reporting to them.
Yeah,
It's
hand
an
it off.
opportunity for me.
Right. I mean,
It
you
may
know,
not be under our jurisdiction, but it's under something I care about, and I'm going to take the opportunity to use it.
I mean, the site visits, you know, we should be updating our electronic catalog and documenting our field observations. So I think those are, you know, the main charter that we have, and if there's violations, I think there is a community responsibility to report
Sure.
them and hand them off to the appropriate
Sure.
agency.
Right, a community responsibility as an individual. Also on Middle Lane that we looked at, all of us.
Middle Highway?
Middle Highway. There's some of the road that has not been paved, that is no longer that is not being used, and I think this might be a good opportunity to maybe get that deeded back to the trustees.
Yeah, Rick
Well,
Whalen
it was
had
never
pointed
deeded
that out.
away.
Oh, it was never deeded?
No. No, it's still in trustee hands.
Okay.
The town was trying to complete an agreement that the trustees had previously, but apparently this is the third time they've
Oh,
tried to.
is that how that worked?
Yeah, they never filed the deeds.
They never filed it a long time ago.
So it's still...
So it's still.
It's up in the
still
air.
ours.
But has it,
And that's fine.
But did we grant them,
I
did
think
we
we
grant them an
granted it to them,
easement
but the
when that
deed wasn't
Whalebone
filed
Woods was being
properly or something
developed?
like
Yes.
that.
Yeah, well, there
Who
is
at
an,
this juncture is responsible for filing?
Anything that's improved was granted an easement.
there are written easements in all of the roads files. They're quite interesting, and they do spell out the specifics of responsibility for maintenance.
Yeah, we
Some of the
went
meets
through
and bounds
some
are
of the
defined
files
there.
in the
So there are some waypoints that you can actually glean from the easements and some of the historical documents.
This
I just
filing
You might want
just
to take a look,
disappear?
just check them out. It's interesting.
I just
That could
felt
help.
that if they still had the, if it was deeded to them and
Right.
they
It's
were...
a nice
Yeah,
section
if
there.
it's unimproved, we still,
Okay, good.
Are those unimproved areas of Middle Highway planned on being improved, do you know?
No.
Or they
I
are
don't
not planned?
think so. One's a buffer in front of a small development, and one was a section of open space on the other side of the road.
but
Both real pretty
just because
pieces.
it was improved doesn't mean it's in the town's,
it's not in the town's highway
it
system.
may still be ours.
We gave easements to
but
the
there's easement-
homeowners,
They're encumbered by easements. That's-
to the homeowners, not to the town.
Yeah,
And so the town was looking to take them so that they can bring it into the system.
okay, but the difficult...
But they kept dropping the ball.
Well, part of the reason they dropped the ball is a lot of those, this is what happened back in late 70s, early 80s. Some of these properties were being developed, okay? And to get the subdivision approval, they needed to have patent access to the property, so easements were granted by the trustees. Unfortunately, when the roads were improved, they weren't improved to the level, either because of drainage or typically the paving width wasn't wide enough for the town highway department to take them into the highway system. So the properties kind of fell into this no man's land of, yes, the people have an easement, and they've come to us asking for snow plowing, to take care of the roads and things like that. But in the easements, it is spelled out clearly that most of the time it's the responsibility of the property owners to keep the roads maintained. When you talk to the town highway superintendent, he has no way that he can take them in the condition they're at. They'd have to be widened. In many cases, the drainage would either have to be improved or replaced, things like that. And
It
that's
would be a
what's-
huge cost to the
Yeah.
town.
In some ways, they're just like those urban renewals.
It's a lot like the urban
Just thinking-
renewals.
Yeah.
Well,
We
in
have
some
urban renewal
cases,
right
what you
here in
got
Northwest.
is you got urban renewal map properties butting up to trustee roads, and I think, what the heck is it, was Middle Highway or something?
Midland, then we had Bay Avenue and
Midland and
Noel
Bay
Lane.
Avenue, we had that a few years ago, so there's no real easy solutions to some of these things.
Right. The homeowners associations need to maintain them at this time. It's their responsibility.
Renewal lots, little tiny slivers here and there, and nothing connected to make a buildable lot.
Hey, Del, when you have a chance, could you forward me the site visits you did so I can put them in the spreadsheet?
Yes.
The roads and the
Absolutely. We got to get together 'cause I got to
observations.
get times. I have.
Yeah.
So I want to keep track of the dates we were out.
Sure,
Create a nice journal format for us.
Thank you
Early in the
for
game.
your work.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Susan, thanks, Del.
Everybody, yeah. we're-
Yeah, no, I know.
We got a
but-
good team. And,
Yeah.
they haven't been looked at in a while. A lot of them
That's
haven't
good.
been looked at.
No, this is good stuff. So did we cover roads, Midland Highway?
That was it.
Yeah.
We're done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there is one pending matter there, if I could just revisit
Sure,
that briefly. That, Chris did send the letter to the owner of the offending property, and he has offered to meet with us at the property and move the fence to what appear to be his property line stakes.
No, wait a second. It's not what appears to be his property line stakes. It behooves him to get an updated survey of his property, verify his meets and bounds, and then move his fence back to those points. It's not a guessing game for us to go out and try and interpret anybody's monuments, stakes, or anything, because there's not a single person here that carries errors and omissions insurance. That's a job for a licensed surveyor. So
It's a fair statement.
it's a simple deal of, you don't really need to meet with the individual. His surveyor, if he's unaware of where his property begins and ends, his surveyor can provide him, provide him with that information.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know that he's in that position or not.
Okay.
But he has acknowledged that he was encroaching.
Okay.
He has acknowledged he moved the fence once before, and he has acknowledged he didn't move it all the way to where he should have.
Yeah.
There is a
So we
clear...
don't know
Because
where that
apparently
should
at some
have.
We're
point
not
in
certain.
time,
Right.
he
So an updated
perceived he had
survey-
more property than he really did.
Absolutely.
No, we've seen, the
So
property
this may
stakes
be
are in place.
part of our meeting, you know, because we do seem to have a rapport going with him,
but
is to, maybe his surveyor needs to update things, you know, bring in a more recent survey, so
But
you
you
know,
know, when you,
I would
but
refer
you know
to...
what happens? It's real easy when you walk onto a property to see a stake, to see a concrete monument, to see a whole bunch of the pipe in the ground, a rock with a little cross chiseled in it, and go, I'm confident that
We have
this
a
is the
copy of the
guy's, that
previous
this is the
survey.
guy's
We do have a
corner.
copy of the survey.
Yeah, we have,
When is that?
we have a
when
copy
was
of the
that
survey.
dated?
We're never confident of that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a job, that's not a job for
Yeah,
us.
this, like I said, you know, the owner was, you know, very, you know, forthcoming, which was a good start, so
Yeah,
we just want to
yeah.
build up, but your point is well taken.
I don't have the demeanor to be on that committee.
We're trying to work with people, I think that was our starting
Again.
point. Give everyone a fair chance.
Can you use the handheld GPS device with the survey that Chris
Those are all good
No.
for, those
What
are
you
all good
can
for
do is
information.
you know, you can do these things, you can use our handheld GPS devices to try and fulfill a suspicion that you think you're here or there, but just realize that device you can't use as like a legal document. So, you know, it's one of these things, it's a tool, but it's only as accurate. And over in Northwest Woods, it's particularly not accurate because you're encumbered by trees and things like that. That thing can be off 20 feet.
In this case, that'd be
Okay.
a lot.
Yes.
So Chris, what's the date of that survey?
So it's a Walbridge survey from '92.
Yeah, that's not good enough.
Not going to be very helpful, but
Well, I mean, hey, it was,
better than nothing.
but you know, actually, do you have the survey?
Yeah.
Plus, you also wanted to address on that property the easements of the
Well, you got two
driveways
Right, we have the cutouts.
and whether they were,
I don't think there are any easements in the file.
Okay, well, you know what you do have is you've got concrete monuments.
And we found the...
Yeah, we found one.
You got concrete monuments
that
at
backside of the
at Old
property, right? We
Northwest
found
Road. You got a midpoint on here where there's a slight change in angle, and you got a concrete monument at the corner.
We found the corner.
yeah, we found that corner one.
So why wouldn't that be
This
accurate?
one.
Well, I mean, I'm going to tell you a little story.
Oh, boy.
Cozy up.
I had one time, I had a guy ask me to do some clearing for him. And he said, my property goes from here over to here. And he actually put like it was 24 feet. And you know what? Like a freaking idiot, I said, yeah, okay. What could go wrong? Because it was about the distance that you typically find between two houses.
Right.
No reason to suspect that there was any foul play here. Okay, so we go full bore, we're clearing away, and this woman emerges out of the bushes, and you can tell she's pissed. And she comes over to me, and she goes, what are you doing? I'm clearing this thing. And she goes, you're in my yard. I go, no, ma'am, I'm sorry. Let me explain to you. I happen to have a survey right here. You know, I was sure of where I was. And she goes, wait right here. She comes back in, and she shows me her survey. And you know what her first survey shows me? This freaking guy's property ended 4 feet from his house, not 24 feet. He gives me a photocopy of the survey, and to really, like, live the lie, he freaking digs the property monument up, and he moves it over to here, okay? So, the lesson I learned from that moment was don't ever, like, necessarily believe everything somebody tells you.
Interesting.
And that's why, like, we'll ask, like, listen, I'll tell you what, man, you got a friggin' 1,100-foot line here. I don't think I could really trust a string on that. You know what you do? Have your survey drop some stakes every 100 feet.
Yeah, get a fencing stake.
And I'm covered. And if the guy did decide to abscond with the survey, and like in the case of Midland Road, maybe move it to the other side of the road or something.
We could ask for some fresh staking to be done. I don't know, Chris, what do you think? Could we maybe
The
ask?
issue is going to be having the authority to do that. I mean, what we want to do mostly is protect our property boundary interests. We want to, so we can ask him to do it.
He might ask you right
But,
back.
yeah, so, I don't know. You guys can decide amongst yourselves how to go forward, but I don't know that he's just going to go out and get a new survey now because we asked him to.
Right.
Well, if we want to push the issue, can we do the survey?
You can get your property surveyed.
Not too many surveyors are going to verify a survey from 92.
Without.
They'll verify one they've done in the last 5-10 years. But
I don't think there's a survey
missing
of
left.
our properties. I don't think there's a survey of our properties.
Yeah.
Well, roads anyway.
Start doing it.
We were.
I would like to,
I don't know
I'd
that
like
we
to
can
table this to committee, and have our committee meet with our council on this and come up with a plan of action.
How much snow is that?
Yeah, and I'd like to add a little bit more to it, if you don't mind, if we have a few more minutes. And
Yeah,
Rick, we
Chris,
kind of
please.
spoke a little bit about sort of the big picture of the roads committee and properties and what we want to do over the next 20 years or so. And Rick and I talked about this, and the opinions were, if the trustees decide that this is a pursuit worth going forward with in the next 20 years, in addition to cataloging the property, if we want to really know our legal boundaries of properties and certain interested properties, maybe the first one would be this property based on the issues that are present. But in terms of coming up with a proposal, like you mentioned in the beginning, it might be a good idea to pick out 1 or 2 or 3 properties a year, come up with a budget and say, these specific properties that are pressing at this time because of encroachment issues or what have you, maybe we do hire a surveyor or a BOMer or somebody for maybe these properties, and you pick out 1 or 2 a year that have these issues, and you come up with a budget, and you say, okay, we want to know our legal boundary, we want to do a survey because X, Y, and Z on these properties. And maybe it's a good idea over the next couple of years to start doing that. Maybe you pick, maybe it's 1 a year, maybe it's none, maybe it's 3 properties, but ping-ponging off somebody else's survey and piecemealing together different surveys of neighboring property owners are not going to get you, a reasonable boundary line, a legal boundary with any real
Accuracy.
accuracy, right? So
I agree.
that's kind of the way I see it.
No, it's a good point. So I think we have a little homework to do, and I think we should start meeting as a committee to formulate our plan, make these priorities clear, and come before the board with a recommendation.
When you consider how little we have left, and I hate to say that, it's certainly money well spent.
Yeah, it's important to protect. This is
Yeah.
precious property at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Some good stuff out there.
Well, you
And
can only
also,
hope
when you've
that
done that, you've kind of done a baseline document of the condition of the property, notes can be made. I know, like with the Nature Preserve Committee, we've got these nature preserves, and they've prepared, the management plans and stuff for them. And, you think, well, geez, why that, it's a freaking half-acre piece of property, why have that? But it's amazing how, you get the neighboring property owner starts cutting and puts a new fence in or does this stuff that impinges on these nature preserves. And it's a good document that you've got in a catalog that you can pull from any time.
Yep.
Does the tax map, because I have a tax map for East Hampton as a real estate broker in Southampton, does that tax map indicate the trustee roads? I have to take
Yes.
a closer look. So
Yes,
from
it
that,
does.
that's at least a
We have,
beginning.
we have
help.
copy in
but they're
the
not
trustee office.
completely accurate either.
We have
They're
that in the
guidelines.
trustee
They're
office.
Yeah.
they're rough
I
guidelines,
carry it in
Susan.
the car, I'm sorry.
It's hard, they don't have,
It's
enough
not that
detail.
specific, but at least it gives us a baseline
Oh,
where
yeah.
we could go
We
to
have-
and start
we have
looking through
baselines.
it.
We want to embellish in that, and then the survey is really the ultimate
Of
end
course,
game.
but I'm just saying it could be the starting point of where we look to see where
I think
trustee
Dell and
roads
Susan and I have
Well, that's
started,
where we-
we've been
Right,
using
right.
them as a starting
And then
point.
I'm thinking, this fellow that you brought in, he certainly sounds terrific, his resume as
Yeah.
well, if we needed extra.
Yeah, a lot of, the archival, maybe when we get into some of the upland properties or something,
Or even some of the beachfront.
the beachfront properties.
Where the ownership of the
The-
beach is in question.
The roadways, commissioner of roadways, laying out of roadways, he would be able to work with all that.
Sounds like you're all into good things.
Yeah, I mean, Susan, how's your schedule next weekend? Are you guys around Saturday?
I would be available after 3:30
Okay.
in the afternoon, late
Tentatively like a
afternoon.
4 o'clock meeting in the afternoon? Yeah. How about Saturday at 4 at the office for a
Sure.
kickoff? Bring our thoughts together and get a little action plan going?
Sounds good.
All right.
Does the road committee want me to take any further action with Mr. Lang right now, the property owner of 147, or we're going to table that?
Want to set up a meeting?
Do we want to meet with him, or is it premature, being that we may need a survey to accurately move the fence? He can move it, and we can reserve reservation of moving it again, because I would like to see that fence
Well,
move.
you know what you could do is you could just suggest that, being that the last time the property seems to be surveyed was 92, might be time to update this thing.
And then move the fence according to
and
the
move the
update.
fence.
Yeah, I think send him a letter requesting
Yeah.
that we get an
Okay.
updated survey.
Based on the
Current-
rapport we have with him right now, I'd probably start with a phone call.
Yeah.
And talk to him a little bit,
to him.
and say this is what we're going to recommend and request, and if you need be, we'll follow up with a letter as
Yeah.
well.
The other issue that seems to be present on Midland is, as you drive up Midland, on the right side, several of the property owners created their own cutouts. So they don't use their private driveway that's a flag lot servicing 3 or 4 lots. They bumped through the reserve buffer that was intended between Midland Highway and the private driveway, putting these little cobblestone entrances. So I don't know that, I didn't see any easements for anything like that in the Midland file.
In the files. Yeah, I couldn't find
So
anything either.
they seem to have mysteriously appeared, and that may have to be another discussion point, Chris, because I think that the subject property may have one of those, as well as the two.
So they've created second driveways
They
or
want,
driveway entrances?
they're using the paved road,
Midland
Midland,
as their driveway,
instead of using their road, which was,
parallels Midland.
a gravel road now.
Yeah,
It's not like
it's like an oil and stone, maybe.
Yeah, I got to tell you, though, the only difficult thing on a lot of those flag lots is, it's nothing's dumber looking, and you see it all over Northwest, where everybody's got that 20-foot flag that goes to their property, and instead of getting together with the neighbor and like having 3 lots or 4 lots share a flag, having 3 driveways that have 10-foot strips of whatever in between
Well, this
them.
one shares, they share the one road.
So,
They share the one road,
Yeah.
but
This
they've
is the
all
private.
etched out their little, through this,
Individual.
through this buffer,
Yeah.
for each
Everybody's got
individual
separate-
driveway.
Yeah, and it's just,
This,
and like sometimes
made
there's
cut-throughs here.
there's a
Why?
foot between each guy's
Exactly.
pavement.
Where does this
But you know why
go?
they do that
It's
as
in
well?
Old
Because their
Northwest.
driveways add up to their acreage, so then they can say they live on 4 acres as opposed to 3 or 2.
so.
Yeah,
I
but
don't
the
know why
thing is,
these were
it's just
created.
on paper.
I know,
Just
but
has
they like
to
to
be-
say
Right in the
that.
buffer.
The only logical explanation is
It's a
so
better
they
road.
can use the pave
It's a better road.
longer until they have to hit the dirt. And in this case, it's right at their
Yeah,
driveway.
they just cut right across their private
Yeah.
driveway.
Yeah.
But is the land that those little cuts are on trustee land?
Yes.
We believe
We
so.
think
Well, we
so.
don't know, we don't know for sure.
That's the question.
If not, yeah.
Because the way those lots are
Goes back
set,
to
it gives each of
surveys.
those property owners their own access back to
Goes back to, we stand there, we
Northwest.
scratch our head,
Waste
and
of
like,
trees.
do we
So
know
we don't,
this? Do we
it
know
could
that?
stop
Easements,
Right.
the town.
I don't think there are easements right now.
I
How are
mean,
these,
town,
how are these
this whole
trustee
thing.
roads defined in the first
It
place?
depends on where,
Are they defined?
They're just a
where the
drawing on a map.
easements are.
Yes.
their own.
No, I think they
No,
were,
they are.
I think they were
They are.
originally defined, and then over the years, as the surveying techniques improved,
There's 3 of
they
them, I
were
think, Chris. There's
refined.
3 cut-throughs.
across. When
where
you-
they aren't here.
Putting
But, you know,
There's a buffer.
Right.
There's a
Between-
buffer.
Oh, yeah, back in the old,
Yes.
in the old trustee
Because-
records, yeah, they would lay out these
private driveway.
roads, you know.
They go right out through.
Because the purpose of those trustee roads was to prevent,
It's through the
if you
buffer.
had a property in between
uses this one here to get
me and where I wanted to
You're
go,
right.
that you couldn't landlock me. That was
So you would have
I
like a
think it
road,
probably
3-rod,
is.
4-rod.
Right.
Okay,
So the road only becomes trustee road here, at this juncture?
No, the whole thing is trustee
can the road committee investigate that stuff? Because it's almost 10 o'clock now.
Yeah, let's get the hell out
Why
of here.
still
Yeah.
a few hours?
All right, Three Mile Harbor, Gallagher.
Got my little pump.
Well, I spoke at that ZBA meeting. I don't think the ZBA's made a decision yet. I think
Okay.
they had 60 days.
Education?
And you wanted to go, education.
Okay, so April 12th, which is a Thursday, we're going to go to the Amagansett Elementary School with Barley and the trustee committee, and everybody else is welcome to come as well. And it's just a great time. It's only an hour. The kids have a great time. We teach them a little bit about, the history of the trustees. I think having Barley there, and I spoke to him earlier today. He's got all kinds of neat little, he has a show that he puts together, so it should be fun. 1:30, again, April 12th. It's a Thursday at Amagansett Elementary School.
And then I would like to just follow up by saying I spoke to Brian, and I'm on education with him, so I'm going to go to that definitely. But also see, I've already called East Hampton John Marshall Elementary School to see if we can do a little program there and create broader outreach for the educational program for trustees. I'll ask Barley on Saturday if he might join us as well.
Okay, good.
Okay, great. Anything else? All right. Administrative payment of the bills. Allstate sign and plaque, $65.46. Optimum, $165.74. FedEx, $121.50, and that was for the Army Corps of Engineers permit to go back and forth. Anthony Towhill, $2,450 for Deepwater Wind. North Fork Water Supply, $80.44.
I'd like to make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes, February 26th.
Yep, I've had an opportunity to look at the minutes for the 26th. I think there were a few minor revisions put forth that were done by the office staff. And I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes with the revisions that were submitted.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Financial reports for the month ended January 31st amended. Did everyone get a chance to look at that?
Yeah, I had an opportunity to look them over, and I'm glad that we held them over, for folks to look at it. So I would, without further discussion, if there is any, to approve them.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and for the month ended February 28th.
I would ask that we table them to our next meeting, giving everybody an opportunity to look at them.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And we have a renewal of another certificate of deposit, the account ending in number 1633. Do I have a motion to renew?
I'd like to make a motion to renew.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thing's really cranking up the interest I see there.
All right, report of the clerk. I have two things. Those kayak racks at Louse Point and at Settlers Landing still need to be repaired. Do we have any volunteers?
I'll take care of it.
Or we can hire an outside person to do it, it's fine. If
No, I
anybody-
got somebody who'll do it.
Fantastic.
Okay, it's not gonna happen, guys, just so you know, it's not gonna happen till the end of the month.
End of the month?
That's wonderful.
That's okay. Now,
Yeah.
you're on the Nature Preserve Committee. I've been talking with Zachary about the possibility of us putting kayak racks at the end of Gerard Drive.
Yep.
Right. That was brought up, I believe, last year as well.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, they approved it. Now, the deal with this is those kayak racks really aren't going to be on the beach. They're going to be up a little bit. It's kind of quasi.
Right.
At the end of Gerard?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they're kind of like nestled within the Dune area, sort of.
I seen a couple of them there the other day, up on the...
Last year, it was a real problem.
Yeah, there was just-
There
Yeah,
were
there was a pile of kayaks there.
almost 30 of them in there.
All right.
I saw a few.
I only volunteered for last
Yeah,
one.
no.
Just want to make
See,
that.
last year, it went from the natural resources to the town board, and there was no movement from the town board on it. So, our other option is to just say, it's the beach, and we just go
No.
ahead and do it.
Do we have a desirable spot?
Well, yeah,
Do we want to double check with the town board one more time? I think we have some
There's a
new
lot of
members on
beach
the
down
board
there
that
now.
are
After that
into it.
dredging, we got beach up the ass.
yeah, there's tons of sand.
Well said. And little rocks.
We can, I mean, but we can't, we can't, when do you want to do the lottery?
March 15th?
Friday?
Yeah.
Oh, this Friday?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Yeah,
let's-
let's do it.
they
Let's
will-
just, we'll build.
Build them.
And I know,
how many we want to accommodate?
Say 24 last year, you want to start with, 24 or 36?
I like 36.
36 sounds good.
30, yeah. 36 is
Can I get a motion?
I'd make a motion.
And you want me to get a couple of bids? I'll run with it.
We'll check.
I got a couple of guys in mind, they'll do it
I
very reasonable.
might be able to get Parks, but,
Okay, let me know.
okay, so we have a motion for 36?
Yep.
Wait a
Second?
minute.
Second.
I'm not sure. I ordered the stickers, and I may have only ordered 35.
Okay, so we'll say 30.
Okay,
30 work?
yeah.
30.
30 is
Motion
good.
for 30.
30 with the accommodation for 36.
Okay, do I have a second?
Okay.
Who made the motion?
All in favor?
Who made
Aye.
the motion?
Who made the motion, Rick?
I did, John second.
Okay.
That's cool.
Okay, and as you recall, Rick Whalen was graceful enough to stick around an additional month at the end of his term. In order to get him paid for that, we need to pass a resolution extending his contract from last year so that we can get a voucher for the month that he served. So I would like to read this off, and hopefully you guys will pass it. The following resolution was offered by me. Whereas the trustees agreed to extend Richard Whalen's contract through the month of January 2018 to serve as their counsel. Whereas the town's portion of Mr. Whalen's salary was set at $28,000 for the year 2017. Therefore, be it resolved that Mr. Whalen shall be paid $2,333.33 from the trustees' budget line account A8710.54520 for the month of January 18. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Okay. Correspondence, I think you all got that report from Simon Kinsella. And then there was
Prettiest
also,
report I ever got.
and then there was
Beautiful. Did you get it?
a note from the Wainscott Citizens Advisory Committee.
Coffee
Saw
table.
that too?
So
Okay.
nice.
Anybody have anything else?
Nope.
Motion to close.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you very much, everybody. That was a long evening. I appreciate your